Hello and welcome to Time on GRAPPL. I'm JP.
I'm Gareth.
I'm Liam.
And I'm Matty. Gareth's laughing his head off already, you JP. What's going on?
JP's introduction, I know I say this every time, but when JP starts and he hosts and he says the hello bit, he sounds like Terry Wogan so much to me every single time. I can just hear Wogan in my head. Like, I know he doesn't sound like it, but it's what I can just hear in my head. And like,
I'll take that. Wogan's a proper fucking legend. So like, I'll happily take any comparisons to Terry Wogan in there at all. How are we? Well, this is a completely brand new show, which isn't, I mean, there'll be plenty of wrestling related things that we'll bring up into it, but it's non-wrestling related. Liam, I'm going to go to you first, mate, because this came up with the idea for this and it is brilliant. It's taken us a little while. What is the concept for Time?
Well, firstly,
big fucking question. Sorry, I feel like I was speaking to Stephen Hawking there for a second.
Firstly, I would like to say it was a collaborative effort between me and Matty to give Matty his dues here.
Well, you're the brains, Liam, though. You are the brains of the operation.
Apologies, Matthew.
I wouldn't go.
It's all right, JP.
But it all stemmed from a drunken conversation me and Matty had in Liverpool regarding doing a podcast just to discuss parts of popular culture during our formative years. Should I say that they've probably shaped us and scared us off a few things, got us interested in a few things, and helped us put together this, I don't know, this whole world that lives beyond us. So originally the plan was to pick a month in a particular year, go over the big events of that period. What Matty likes to call the 4 pillars of culture.
The 4 pillars. I think that's apropos, though, boys. Come on, I thought that's a good phrase I've coined there. Like, I like that.
Is Giant Baba like sort of John Reith then at the BBC? Is he in that case? All Japan is there to educate, inform, and entertain. Sorry.
And Inoki's Michael Grade, I think.
Mate, when he kicks out World of Sport.
If we get any t-shirts made, have we got to tell Mark Pickering first?
Yeah.
But so music, television, film, and sport are the 4 pillars.
That covers it, doesn't it, Liam? That's about right, isn't it? That's about right.
I wanted to add the arts, theatre, books.
I was going to say books.
Yeah, but I mean, they didn't make the cut. Matty told me there wasn't 8 pillars. There was only 4. So here we are. So this is where we are.
Is it an anti-books podcast then? In that case,
I don't want to offend anyone, JP. I know books are big, mate.
We'll be doing that anyway, won't we? For this one.
Can we take that out? Matty's phrase of "books are big."
Anyone who knows me, know Liam well on a personal level, know that like I've got a bookcase full of books. And about 2% of them have read all the way through me, so it's like I'd rather watch something than read something.
I know. It's shocking, really. Like, I mean, I think I'm bad like that as well. I'll be honest with you. But yeah, we've got the month for this one in the year. We've gone for November 1993, which is, I suppose, the main question I have to ask. And we'll go around. I'll start off with you, Gareth. Where were you in November 1993? And how old was
you, Gareth?
How old were you?
1993. I was back in working. I was 15 years old, and I was getting ready for my GCSEs in 5 months' time, 6 months' time, something like that. So pretty much slap bang in the middle of the teenage years. There started. You're drinking in the park and listening to good music and all that business. Very.
What was the part drink of choice? Thunderbird, 2020.
Lager. Gotta be
no, it wasn't. As much as I like my beer and that now, I was like very known in school for fucking hating beer and hating lager. It was very much it was. Do you know what it was like like you said there, your 2020, your bottled cider, your castaways. Like you said, Nick cast my sister's castaways out of the garage. So he used to love a castaway.
Never heard of that one.
And
Your age again here, Gareth.
and then around here was when you started to get the old hooch and two dogs started to become available very, very soon. So once the hooch and two dogs, I was more of a two dogs man than a hooch man. Me, that became the drink of choice.
Jesus Christ. What did hooch bring forth as well? I mean, I think with hooch is where you end up with like Smirnoff Ice, don't you? Really, at that point,
Mets.
Mets. Oh my god!
Was that the Judderman Mets?
Yeah,
it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But also you get the Moscow Mule, Smirnoff Mule in the gold bottles as well. That was another like alcopop that came out at the time as well. Quality stuff, but a great era for somebody who didn't like lager or bitter, particularly at that time.
How about you, Liam? Where were you at that point in time?
I was 9 years old, so I was in school. I was obsessed with the Gladiators, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, and wrestling, possibly.
I was hoping, Liam, that you were actually going to be like 50 on the sly, and you were just looking really good or something like that. So I'm a bit disappointed there that you were 9.
I'm disappointed that my complexion didn't age like Michael Hayes's to give you a tip off there. But yeah, I was in school, but strangely enough, looking back over what we're looking at today, I tend to remember a lot of these things from when I was 9, which worries me a lot.
That's strange, Liam. I was going to say that's strange. That.
Christ, that's younger than I was, Sadie. That's mental. I'm just sort of doing it like in my head there, just thinking how young our Sadie is. I'm like, oh god, crazy.
It's the concept of time, isn't it?
This is it. This is it, boys.
Like Ron Seal, the show.
Matthew, where were you at this point in time? Not being called Matthew, obviously.
I was getting called Matthew a lot, JP. I was seven years old, and same as Liam, 7 though. I'm just like, in school, same as Liam, wrestling obsessed, playing me wrestling figures, doing my own, booking my own promotion when I was 7 years old with my wrestling figures. And using like 18 figures and Ghostbusters figures or whatever as like doing invasion angles before they were popular, JP. You know what I mean? So, just literally, Liam, I can't believe you can remember stuff like this at the time. I know it's 2 years younger, but stuff like this, I've obviously, caught up over the years and obviously look back at it and love going back to look at any year in particular. But yeah, I can't believe you can remember it, mate.
Yeah, a lot of it. Faint memories for a lot of it, but I think a lot of them are so big culturally that it was hard to miss them, despite how old you were. I mean, especially some of the sporting events. It kind of osmosis from my brother and sister, and my dad and my mum as well. That if I had no interest in them, they did, and I would have heard about them from that. Yeah, more so than having gone out of my way to find out about certain things.
It's also the thing as well, at this point in time, this is the thing to remember, is if you watch TV, you had one TV in your house and it was in the front room, and generally it was a much more communal thing. Yeah. So the idea of watching soaps with your parents and stuff was a thing that we all did kind of on the reg. And you'd be like, oh, okay, you'd be, with that as well. But you'd only have possibly, the top 40 would be still being taped and stuff like that. Oh,
JP loved that. Yeah, taping it out off Radio 1. And we had like
cut off the ads.
Radio City end as well, Gareth. It was like the Pepsi chart, weren't it? So it was, sorry, JP, but it was like the official top 10 was the same, but the other 30, Gareth, was different, wasn't it? It was all based on airplay on that station, but we had the same top 10. It was madness, JP. Just different times. I love it.
I don't know. I didn't know Radio City existed in '93, Matty. I'd never been to Liverpool at this point.
Oh, yeah, sorry, mate. Because you're a fully fledged member these days. Sorry, mate. You're a Benno spot. I assume you're Benno as well, as you said.
Well, at this point, I was same as Gareth. I was 15. I was preparing for my GCSEs. I was also working in a pub and nightclub, picking up bottles and shit on like a Friday, Saturday night. Mate, they're dark stories after a while. They really are. Been put in positions for it as well. But there was a bloke there It's how I got into weed. It was a thing where like bloke would come. I can say it now. It happened fucking 20 odd years ago. So what would happen is, Christ, 30 years, Jesus. You would go. He would be wanting to sort of deal his weed and stuff, but he'd chuck a little bit like a bag into the pocket of my shirt that was there, and then I'd sell half on to my mate Jesse, who gave us a lift home from school and stuff like that. It was like, yeah, it was a good little deal. Simpler times. Where I first read American Psycho, sat in a cloakroom one night. That was a formative fucking experience. But yeah, so a lot of this stuff for November '93. It's Friday night, for example. The Word was like a fucking staple diet. Like all of the things that we're going to go into and all of the areas are all very much like kind of like you said earlier on. These are the four pillars that made us. Not like Misawa, Kawada, Taue, and Kabashi. But so we're going to start off first of all. Going to go to you first, Matty. We're starting off with the pillar of music, and these are the music charts for 28th of November 1993.
Well, Liam, do you want to give us the your old Dr. Fox impression, your Neil Fox impression, and go count down the from 10 till 1, mate, if you don't mind?
Well, I don't really want to be impersonating him, but we'll do these. Right, number 10 to 1. Number 10 on the 28th of November 1993 was Runaway Train by Soul Asylum.
Good tune, that.
Number 9, Don't Look Any Further by M People. Number 8, again by Janet Jackson. 7, Long Train Running by the Doobie Brothers.
Now I've got to stop you, Liam. What is this song? I don't know it. I really don't know it.
You would do if you heard it. So what I'm going to try and do now is try and share the screen somehow so we can get it up in here. So you might be able to see it. You'll know it as soon as you see it, mate.
Go on.
Okay. So here we go. Just share this one on here. Can you hear it now?
Oh, yeah.
You remember this?
I don't, boys.
Wow.
Fucking hell, mate.
Oh,
You're killing this podcast before we've even got started, mate.
JP, I'm getting educated, mate. You're all older than me.
We were in that. Was it the start of the remixes? Was it this time when we started to get? I mean, we'd had Jive Bunny, hadn't we? Not long before then as well, and things like that. And we were starting.
Come on, everybody.
Oh, don't. The kind of thing you play at Guantanamo Bay now, really, wouldn't you? At this point in time, than this. But yeah. So that's Long Range Running by the Doobie Brothers. In case
that I think we better cross off the format 5 to 1 Doobie Brothers songs for Matt later in the show. So that was number 7. Number 6 was Stay Far Away So Close, double A side with I've Got You Under My Skin by U2 and Frank Sinatra. Which I know everybody wanted a Frank Sinatra and U2 collaboration. Number 5.
I have to admit, I was a massive U2 fan at this point in time. That's a cultural upbringing
Gareth shaking his head, not happy with that.
I'm not happy with that at all. And I was also a cinephile at this point, so I liked Vim Vendors. Because I'd gone out until the end of the world thinking it might be a bit blue, but it really wasn't. It was more of a sort of meditation on life in the near future, starring Sam Neill.
I like to think that a big part of mine and Sarah's connection has been the hatred of Bono. Like when the European Music Awards were in Liverpool, like Sarah had tickets and she was right down at the front, and they brought Bono out to give him some like lifetime achievement award, and Sarah was shouting "Bono, you cunt" at the top of her fucking at the top of her lungs, much to the displeasure of the people around her.
Don't you like none of the songs, Gareth? Though none at all. Best one if you have to pick one. Let's go round. What best U2 song, boys? Let's start early with this one.
I would say the only one that I like is that Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me from that.
Oh, yes.
I think that's an all right song.
I bought that single. It must be the only U2 item that I've ever bought. So
Broken with the name of one song.
Oh,
God,
I literally couldn't think of any others there. And then now you've said that, and then like
that's a classic.
Like I remember buying it just because it was.
He was rumored to be playing a villain in that Batman film. It was from. Is it from Batman and Robin? No, it's Batman Forever.
Kilmer.
One of the two, yeah.
Yeah, defo the Kilmer one.
So Gareth, if you had to listen to the whole back catalogue of The Edge or watch the whole back catalogue of the wrestler Edge, which one would you choose?
He's going wrestling all day.
All day long. Just to see a bit of Christian.
Getting that Copeland over. I mean, in fairness, I mean, what is it? They are registered in the Dutch Antilles, so like they kind of lost their like kind of idea of being, as a kid, my dad led me to the biggest band in the world are Irish, and I was like, yeah, I went along with that. I feel like a fool now in hindsight. My favourite, I'd probably be. I still want to say In the Name of Love. Like
Joshua Tree's the IWC album, isn't it?
It's that's the IWC, mate. If I've ever fucking
I went to see Rattle and Hum in the cinema, which I was like 11 when we went to see it, and it was kind of lost on us. Really, it wasn't a film; it was a bit of concert footage as much as anything else. It was like that scene in The Simpsons where Milhouse talks about going to see an R-rated film, and then they're off to see Barton Fink. And you just thought, it was that kind of similar experience of like, this is going to be completely lost on me.
If anybody wants a Barton Fink poster, find me on Twitter.
Brilliant.
So where are we up to in the list now? We've got
number 5.
Sorry. Is the fifth pillar selling items? Is that was that a big premise of the show? Clearing your lockup.
Well, we all have to eat, regardless of our musical taste. Number 5, Don't Be a Stranger by Dina Carroll.
Big tune.
Number 4, Please Forgive Me, Bryan Adams.
Oh, fucking hell.
Another tune.
Number 3, Mr. Blobby.
Oh,
Mr. Blobby. And number 2, True Love by Elton John and Kiki D. And number 1 at this time for the week of the 28th of November 1993 was I'll Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That by Meatloaf.
That had to be a 10-week, Liam. Was that 10 weeks? That had to be like, it was a big number 1, that wasn't it?
Yeah, that was, yeah. I remember there were 3 songs from this period I remember being number 1 for ages. There was this, there was Whitney Houston from The Bodyguard, I Will Always Love You, and Wet, Wet, Wet from 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Yeah.
Them 3 songs. Just
Liam,
like,
Bryan Adams as well, off Robin Hood. That was
yeah.
yeah.
Everything I do for you. I remember this when I'll Do Anything for Love by Meatloaf come out. I remember the world premiere being on Top of the Pops, and it took up about 8 minutes of Top of the Pops, and I was fuming that it took 8 minutes up, and they had to play less videos and performances than they usually would.
Yeah. Fucking Meatloaf, lad. I mean, you couldn't avoid this song though, could you? Even my earliest memories, like the box, this was just on all the time, wasn't it? Constantly always on the box.
It was when number 1s where you genuinely questioned who is still buying this at this point in time. We mentioned Bryan Adams. I mean, he was very much like the earliest offender of this period of time. A bit like My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion, and it was just like, this is hell. Like, this song is absolute hell. And like, I think it's the thing with Meatloaf is I kind of by default hated him and hated this song because it was number 1, and I decided, at this point, dare I say it? Well, as we'll find out later on, we're into the nascent stages of Britpop, so there was much more interesting kind of like songs I wanted to listen to. Now, though, you play that at a wedding. I've had a few shandies. Like I'm fucking singing it, aren't I?
I'll always just have that negative. I always have that negative with Meatloaf because I can remember being in like primary school and like just starting to like some like metal albums and things like that, and somebody going like, "Oh, Meatloaf," and then like showing me the front of Bat Out of Hell and me looking at it, being like, "Yeah, like that looks cool as fuck," like the like motorbike and all that, and like Bat Out of Hell and stuff. It just and then hearing it and just been like what, like what the fuck is this shit? Like this isn't like Guns N' Roses or something like that. So I'll always permanently have that in my head. And then when this song came out, this was just torture. It never never went away, this song, ever.
No, it didn't.
No,
Brilliant.
I've always lived by a easy rule that anything described as operatic rock, I veer well clear of. Well clear of.
Yeah.
I've never heard a good song described as operatic rock in my whole life.
I'll be honest, if I ever hear the word opera, I just tend to think that is not for me. I've got it's just fucking vowels being yelled loudly to quote.
But boys, can I give you
it?
me 3 points on Meatloaf though? Well, I don't mind him. Number one, he took a mean RKO in his time. He did. Have you ever seen it, Gareth? He took a mean RKO. It's a mean one.
I don't think so.
No, guest hosting of Raw, mate. Check it out. Number two, he was fucking brilliant on Bo Selector. Because when Avid Merian pulls him out of the crowd, he plays along well. He's fucking great. And number three, I've never actually ever tried Meatloaf. I don't know what the fuck it is. I don't know what the fuck it is. JP, is it a delicacy? Is it a breakfast? Is it a dessert? What the fuck is it?
Like dinner, as far as I can tell.
Has anyone had it?
I've never had it in my life, so here you go. Just in case.
I missed that boy who throws on my replay, JP.
Oh my God.
Brilliant.
What a bum.
Another thing I'll say for Meatloaf, probably my favourite AFL Grand Final performance of all time. If you haven't seen that, Google that.
Oh, it was the absolute worst, wasn't it? It was just all over the place for that one. I mean, I like watching a big Australian sporting event just to see which generally middling artist or someone like Silverchair or someone does the half-time stuff. So getting Meatloaf in was a big fucking deal.
For 20 quid, can anyone tell us his real name? Because I fucking can't.
No.
Well, it's not meat.
No one even knows how to eat. This is why we're not even into him, are we, at all?
No, not much. But the rest of the charts for this period, 1 to 10, anybody else have any thoughts on anything else? Gareth, Soul Asylum?
Oh, Soul Asylum. This song was everywhere, wasn't it? This was all over MTV, like huge at the time. Obviously, they had the video with all like the lost
homeless kids,
children, you know, that was. It felt like every time you turned MTV on, it was being replayed. But this was the year that I went to my first ever gig, Guns N' Roses at Milton Keynes Bowl, and so Soul Asylum, statistically or factually, are the second band I ever saw live, because it was Blind Melon, followed by Soul Asylum, followed by The Cult, followed by Guns N' Roses. So they're in there at number 2. But as I said in this group chat, never liked Soul Asylum, and never liked that fucking scruffy twat Dave Perner, the fucking lead singer, because Winona Ryder was and is always my all-time number one, and he got to fucking go out with Winona Ryder as well, and I was just like, fucking that fucking cunt. He's gonna like it was Johnny Depp, all right at the time, kind of thing. Like he could like, fine, but that fucking
rockstar order,
that fucking loser. Like, made me think I had a chance anyway when I was 15.
Not a 45, no.
No, definitely not now.
Like you say, though, Gareth, this is one of my first memories of MTV. This video was on non-stop in rotation. This video was. But here's a question. This is off the album Grave Dancers Union.
Yeah.
What number album is that for Soul Asylum, on the basis that this is probably the first time I remember hearing Soul Asylum?
It's got to be 3 or 4 then, if you put it like that, Liam. It's got to be.
I'll go 5 then.
I'll say 6 for a laugh.
JP's right. This is their 6th album. They were formed in 1981.
I told you he was a loser.
The bitterness. Love it.
Fucking Dave Perner.
I don't know.
Sorry, I've just Googled him now and just seen his
Soul Asylum, not the band that Nirvana could have been, Gareth.
Are they?
they always have come across as one of those bands that was signed to a major label on the back of the grunge boom and Nirvana being big.
Yeah.
That this would have been their 6th album, and we wouldn't know anything about the 5 that came before it if
Definitely, yeah.
Nirvana wasn't a band.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got record producers, record labels go out and sign their next Nirvana. How many bands just got fucking signed on the back of that in the next 12 months and just got a sweet little deal there just for one album or something like that? Because just as I'm on Dave Perner's thing here and it's saying like grunge, I'm just like grunge. Like no, no, it wasn't. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't grunge. Like fucking.
I think alternative rock's the safest description.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's. I don't want to talk about Soul Asylum anymore.
M People, Matty. Any favourite M People songs?
Oh, moving on up, so updating it for you to come on to, as JP said, throw that on at a gathering or my wedding party, JP, that could come on and we better bust some moves to that one, mate.
I'd be moving along to that one as well.
What's the other one? Oh my God. One Night in Heaven, is it? That's it, it's another one. Yeah. It's another good one. Yeah.
Search for the Hero.
Emotional.
I don't know. I kind of laugh at it and think this would be the kind of music a serial killer would listen to. I kind of expect it to be used in some ironic subtext like that. Where that's
I'm sure, JP, one for you. I'm sure Barrymore sang that on one of his shows, you know. I'm sure he has at the time.
So he sang it at a fateful party, apparently. I've got no evidence for that he did.
Oh, mate.
His kind of people.
Is anybody going to admit to buying the Mr. Blobby single at the time?
No.
Anybody?
No,
awful.
No. Even as a kid, Liam, as a young child, no, not for me. Not for me.
Sounded like Satan.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really no getting around that. I mean, fucking awful.
Doing the rounds as a wrestler these days, isn't he, boys, as well?
Somebody should have been buying up that suit a long time ago. Blobby should have been working the fucking Indies turn of 2010, shouldn't he? Dixon, Alex Shane, they would have had a Blobby type character in all of these. He would have worked perfectly. DDT can get away with that shit, for Christ's sakes. I'm sure the fucking Butlins camp shows could do. But no, I never bought anything Mr. Blobby oriented. Trust me, I watched Noel's house party. Like, we'll happily say it. But the Blobby thing was like, I don't really like this. Was it at the point in time as well where it was kind of funny? It would be like a lot more anarchic.
Yeah.
How are we going to like him? We were in our mid-teens.
Yeah. And I hated him, JP, so you're going to fucking hate him.
Yeah.
To be honest.
It's fucking awful. And it was like, as well, like, it was Christmas #1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, this just goes to show how big it was, because if you have a look at this, it's the end of November and it's number 3. And then I think from memory, Take That possibly get to #1. And then Mr. Blobby takes over for Christmas.
That's big.
Big, yeah.
Oh, big. Blobby was a big star, wasn't it?
Big push for Blobby there, isn't it?
The good thing about it though is it's always a great comeback on arguments when like people like talk about like things been, I don't know, WWE being better because it like sold more tickets or something like that, or more people watch it or something. You can always go, yeah, but Mr. Blobby went to #1, so you can't judge like the taste of the public at large has been the definitive like thing for something being good or bad. And then when you look at this top 10, pretty much fucking all just like sums that up for me, really.
I was going to say, did any of us buy any of these, or did they get more for us? Did we own any of these, or have we owned any of these as an adult? Anyone? No.
Far Away So Close. Had the film as well, mate. It was a sequel to Wings of Desire, as I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
All the scene. Love that. About real life angels as well in Berlin. But yeah, that would have been the one I would have like owned out of all of these, because I probably had the album, to be honest with you.
I'm gonna say, JP, you're forever now the U2 guy. Forever now.
My rep may take a hit here, but I always think "Don't Be a Stranger" by Dina Cowell's a bit of a tune.
Yeah, it's a tune.
Amazing.
I had that on a Now album. That was what I was going to say. That's the only one on the list that I know I definitely had, because it was on a.
What is she up to these days?
Now compilation.
Classed in the Now's, Gareth, even up until like a few years ago. They missed out on like keeping up with like the top 40s, they were always easy to just give a listen, weren't they? Classic.
Big fan of Now 3, Matty. That was a good one.
They come out with single figures in it, yeah.
Are those the ones when they're all cover versions rather than like the actual songs?
Ah, yeah.
Because I didn't want to pay the royalties, so like the first 15 Now records are like covers of popular songs like by Telstar.
And she started touring in November '93. She had Eternal as her support act as well, and then had The Perfect Year. Her version of that, if you can remember.
I do remember
being
that.
released on that now.
Dina Carroll was big for a bit. Yeah, she was a firm fixture in the cards, I remember.
Yeah, she was.
Oh, she had basically she had Shit with Mercury, the studio at that point in time as well, and then did a cover version of someone Van Morrison's "Someone Like You" for Bridget Jones's Diary, and I went, oh yeah, I kind of remembered that. But go on, bring her back. She was back in 2016. Was Dina? We Bring the Party with the Dig Band, which clearly I've never heard at this point in time.
Well, if Mr. Blobby's had a resurgence, there's no reason why.
Exactly.
Yeah. Bring her back.
About time.
Dina Carroll at ICW.
So away from the charts, a few other news stories in the music world around this period. November the 9th, 2 seminal hip-hop records were released on the same day. Enter the Wu-Tang Clan, more commonly known as 36 Chambers, by obviously the Wu-Tang Clan. Midnight Marauders by a Tribe Called Quest were both released. November the 18th, Nirvana played their Unplugged concert in New York. November 23, 2 news items for this. Guns N' Roses released The Spaghetti Incident, and Snoop Dogg released Doggy Style. Anybody got any thoughts or memories of any of those stories?
Oh, where's Benno when you need him? For
I was going to say,
36 Chambers.
You must be itching, Liam, to say I want to have so much to say about 36 Chambers.
Well,
and Midnight Marauders.
I'll mention both of these albums. I think they are easily 2 of the cornerstones of hip hop. Both of them are very different records musically, but very similar records. I'm going to assume that everybody's heard 36 Chambers on here.
Second hip hop album I ever bought.
Yeah.
Which lends to my point. It was a very much a, at the time, as weird as it may sound, I've heard people refer to it as being an experimental hip hop record based on the production, how sparse it was, how immersive, and it sounded nothing like hip hop did at that point. But now you listen to it and it sounds like modern hip hop. It just lends itself so much to how much of an influence it has had on hip hop. The ability of having so many MCs on a record that just from sound alone can get their characters over by just wordplay and lyrics is, up until that point, I don't think anything came close to that. It's one of those hip hop records I always feel is the hip hop record I would give to somebody to say, this is what good hip hop is. It's always been, through experience of knowing people and speaking to people, that it's always been the hip hop record that people who are not necessarily into hip hop like. I know I grew up with a lot of guys that were into metal and punk and whatnot, and just the ragged, abrasive nature of the record lended itself to metal and punk fans through how it is. I mean, lyrically, it's violent, but it's a record that just doesn't let up, all the way through. Everything is good. The use of samples on that record from kung fu movies from the 70s. That time, nobody was using samples to that degree, and samples from stuff in the 70s on hip hop records. Even to this day, I don't think it's ever been surpassed as a hip hop record. And if I was to do a Mount Rushmore of hip hop records, it would easily be in my top 4.
Well, I know what I'm listening to now, Liam, when I finish this podcast.
Yeah. Fucking long time.
But by no means least, the Tribe Called Quest Midnight Marauders as well is another great album. Different to the Wu-Tang Clan. As I said about the Wu-Tang Clan, it's a very dark, brooding, menacing album, whereas Tribe Called Quest is a more uplifting, bright,
Upbeat.
summer,
Yeah.
upbeat. It's got a where Wu-Tang Clan used samples from kung fu movies and whatnot. Tribe Called Quest used jazz, funk to get their sounds over. The wordplay of it was really for me, the two MCs in Tribe Called Quest, Q-Tip and Fife Dog, their chemistry together, I think, is only group that's ever come close to that is Outkast in terms of their chemistry of playing off of each other. It's a socially conscious album as well. That at that time, hip hop was moving away from that, and it was becoming a more. If you look at albums that come afterwards, there are still a few that were making a comment on what was going on in the world. But Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, what were called native tongues at the time, their group, collective of both of them and others, Queen Latifah, for instance, they were consciously making records that were speaking about what was going on. It's a different album than the 36 Chambers, as I said, but equally a classic and a rarity in all music, basically, that it's an album that followed a classic that is equal to, if not better than the classic that it followed, which was Low End Theory. Both albums, if you've never listened to them, and even if you're not a fan of hip hop or you have a preconception of what hip hop is, listen to both albums and go into them with an open mind. There's two great albums that I would have, if I had to do a list of top 10 albums, both would probably be on there.
In your Desert Island list, then, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think even as time surpassed, nothing's come to that part on how important. And from both to be released on that same day as well, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think with that Wu-Tang Clan one, I don't want to again, I've got I can hear Benno in my head,
That's not a good thing, that Gareth. That's not a good thing.
No, I don't want to, because again, it's not an area of huge knowledge and things like that. But I just know that when I first heard this album, I was just oh, I love that. It was just so dirty and gritty and violent and, like you say, darkly and for my music sensibilities, particularly at that time as well, it just it fits straight in, even though it was obviously a different genre to the stuff that I was listening to in the majority of instances. Otherwise, it was just it really resonated with the time, I think, as well. It just fit perfectly into this period and what was going on in the world and what was going on in the music world and things at this time as well. And like I say, it's I'm not I haven't bought a load of hip hop albums in my life, but this is one that I'll stick this on regularly. It's something that just it totally just stands the test of time for me. And then when when you maybe get some modern hip hop things that people will say to me, oh, this is good, listen to this. I don't know, it's almost like a bit of a benchmark in my mind kind of thing that I'll think, well, yeah, it's all right, but it's not as good as that. And I think that's where, when you talk about Tribe Called Quest and things like that, that was always the stuff that just didn't hit home with me because it was too nice and too kind of uplifting and upbeat, and the funk side of it and stuff like that. It was while good, didn't resonate with me at all. But this Wu-Tang album's fucking class. Love it.
Well, I've we make Cleary, don't you, boys? He's like a. This is probably one of his, speaking for him, but I know this is in his top 5 of all time rap albums for sure. And I come in more commercial, Liam, late 90s, early 2000s. That was my introduction to rap. So I'm more your glitz and glamour side of things, maybe on the rap side. But this I'll have to go back and listen to because I haven't heard it for a long time. But the way you're describing it there, I probably enjoy it more now than I did back then as well, to be honest.
I haven't listened to it in fucking years, mate, and I was pretty much probably caning it. And I've got an awful memory for music, so I'm going to shut up. I'm not saying.
Defo in Benno's top 5 as well. Got to be, hasn't it?
I
Let's
feel
be honest.
bad. I've got the ghost of Benno just thinking like, you fucking say anything about Wu-Tang Clan. It's like,
This is where Benno's listening to this though now, like
Yeah.
but just wanting to like jump in and just like do an hour on it, like.
But other stories around that time. So Guns N' Roses releasing the Spaghetti Incident. Not their most known or most liked album. Anybody has any opinions on that?
Got to be you, Gareth, here.
Just hilarious, like just absolutely hilarious that you've got this band that have become sort of old hat as music has moved from the hair metal of the 80s and to like obviously grunge been like massively came through in the years previously, and everything about like guitar based music been about Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Pumpkins, etc., all that sort of thing coming through. And then Guns N' Roses feel the need to release an album of punk covers to try and show that we're a bit punk as well, like this is where our roots are from. We're not like we're not some 80s hair metal band. We've got that like leaning into credibility there and just trying to lean on that. But I mean, I bought it at the time because I still like Guns N' Roses, like at that time periods. But like, we just used to laugh about this in school. It was just like a joke, like the idea of the Spaghetti Incident. And I think it's just treated as a bit of a joke, isn't it? I don't think I've ever kind of seen anything
completely forgotten about.
Just right down to the title, the ridiculous title, the ridiculous album cover of just spaghetti of like Guns, we're stripped back. This is raw Guns N' Roses kind of thing. This is different. It's not like your manufactured commercial hair metal kind of stuff. Just
he was saving himself for Chinese democracy, mate. Both know this.
And him covering the Charles Manson song at the end as well. Just like all right, Axel. Yeah, like.
Does anybody know where the name of this record comes from?
I don't know.
Well, the story is that Stephen Adler used to keep his drugs in old takeaway containers from Italian restaurants, and one day he had a bit of a mix-up with his drugs, and they named it the Spaghetti Incident, and that's apparently where the title of this record comes from.
Sounds about right for that time.
But they originally tried to justify this. I don't know if you've heard this as well, Gareth. They tried to justify this record by saying that they wanted to cover a load of punk and glam rock bands to give them royalties from the record itself because they were on certain members were on hard times and stuff. But then it came out afterwards that a lot of the songwriters didn't get the royalties because Axl didn't want to pay him the royalties. So that was already a bit to begin with.
No. A bastard I say a bastard from the end. He was always a bastard from the beginning, though. He was like, he'd never hide in that side of himself. And Gareth, you had a great time going to see Guns N' Roses not that long ago, didn't you?
Oh, God. Yeah, that was
you described
awful.
it, the worst gig you've ever been to.
Oh, 100%. When I saw that they'd been announced to do Glastonbury, I was just thinking, oh God, if he performs like he performed that night, like this could be one of the all-timers, just laughing at her, laughing at band. Definitely a change to when I saw them in '93, the year we're talking about, when they were absolutely in their pomp and had Gilby Clarke had broke his hand, so they had to bring back Izzy Stradlin. So you got like original lineup all apart from Stephen Adler performing as well. Couldn't believe my luck. But it's a world apart from the Axl Rose I saw performing last year. Just voice is gone, just looking like a fat Mick Hucknall at the front, and having to get some woman who'd won American Idol or something to do 70% of the singing.
Underwood, was it?
I think she did like about 70% of his vocals for him and stuff. It was just.
Gareth, I seen him in 2012, and he was going off for oxygen then, like 10 years ago. Like, so he generally was. He had to go off in between like fucking solos or whatever to get bouts of oxygen to help him get through the fucking show. Fucking hell. Madness.
Yeah, but it was no surprise that they disappeared sharpish after this, really, for quite a long time, really, wasn't it? I think their credibility was pretty much shot by this point. Never mind the infighting of the band and everything like that, and Axl's ego and everything. Like, I think that they were in 1993. I just think they'd very quickly just become like the times had passed them by, and they were no longer relevant, really.
What about Doggy Style, Liam? We can't gloss over Doggy Style. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. You know, I like that album.
I like Doggy Style. I like Doggy Style as a record. I haven't listened to it for a while. I think it's always been a bloated album with skits and whatnot.
I'm not into the skits, Liam, myself. Like, Eminem was bad for that and all that, weren't he? You know, all them were bad for that. But there's some classics on it, though, Liam.
I agree, and I can't look at Doggy Style. I can't listen to Doggy Style in the same way. I remember, well, I was a little bit further on from this when Snoop Dogg was on that murder charge, and he was perceived as being the most dangerous rapper in America at this point. And now he's doing Just Eat adverts.
Yeah,
appearing in Muppet movies.
He chased the dollar.
He did, and I struggle to see him now as the rapper he was when he released Doggy Style. If I was to listen to Doggy Style, I have modern Snoop Dogg in my head whenever I hear him.
Well, that's it, Liam. That's what I always say. Yeah.
Again, how many bands, how many rappers, how many singers release a classic album? You know,
this is it. I always say that.
His release one, you know, he can dine off that for the rest of his career because a lot of people have never done that. So, you know, more power to him. You know.
But what was with the West Side, Liam, with all the skits and that? Is it just seemed all like I never got them, you know. I don't know, maybe not as a hip hop fan. Was the point to them? Was the like a
no? I think one did it, and they all did it. And you know, if you look at Doggy Style for the template, you know, it's full of skits. That was at the time that was the fastest selling hit. I think it was fastest selling hip hop record at the time when that was released. So, and you know, there was a lot of hype with Snoop Dogg at that time because he appeared on the Chronic, Dr. Dre's album, The Chronic, before this as a guest rapper, and the Chronic was a massive album as well. And then this was his first full-length release, so there was a lot of hype going into that. And yeah, it's a classic album. I haven't listened to it for a while. I like a lot of stuff on it, but I'm not in any rush to listen to it again. You know, it's you know, going a little bit further down to something we're going to talk about later. But as I was saying about Snoop Dogg, I also always have that image of him being attacked by emu on the word.
Yeah. Oh,
that feels like my seminal memory of him around that point in time.
Weirdly, I should be watching Snoop Dogg right now in Manchester, but we sold the tickets instead of going. So that's a bit odd.
That is fucking hell, Gareth.
It's that was I would never have thought I'd be going to see Snoop Dogg in 2023, and I didn't.
Yeah. And he'll probably already Deliveroo, the cheeky bastard, won't he? He won't be having Just Eat either.
Brilliant.
But yeah, talking about a live performance that is somewhat iconic. Nirvana's Unplugged. Anybody remember memories of this? I'm sure everybody knows
best,
this.
Isn't it? It's the best for me. It's the best, especially that last track. Gareth, I know, like the whole of the set, brilliant. But that for me, that fucking Where Did You Sleep Last Night? I mean, what a performance, Gareth. Gives me goosebumps every time I watch it. You know, it does. It's just fucking unbelievable.
Honestly, JP has just put that video up on screen there, and literally 1 second of just seeing Kurt on that set. Honestly, I just got goosebumps right down my spine. Like, honestly, just like this to me is like one of the most, like, I don't know, it was probably like one of the most important things of my teens, because like Nirvana they were like everything to me and my mates, sort of thing. You know, it was just like he was just God kind of thing. Like it was absolutely just like the ultimate. And then like this performance was it's like, even now, like it's something like when I knew we were watching this show and I've watched this, I can't even begin to imagine how many times
Triple
I've watched it in
figures.
my life. Oh, easy, comfortably for a start, because MTV put it on every day after he died. But like,
Oh, yeah.
but,
Loop on it, on a loop it
but,
was, yeah.
but like, I was at work and I thought, oh, I'm going to put Unplugged on, and I just couldn't work and listen to it. Like, to me, it's just like I don't think I could actually watch or listen to this like with somebody else anymore. Like, it's almost like a spiritual experience for me or something. Like,
No, you're right, mate. You're right.
It sounds ridiculous, and like when I sat down and like I listened to it in the car coming home from work. I put the album on, then I sat down and watched selected songs like this afternoon. And like, honestly, like I'm like just like crying, like tears in my eyes, crying. You know, like that last song. Like, I mean,
honestly,
you talk about that, and you say like, you know, when he says like that last bit when he's like, I would shiver, and then all the band stops playing, and then like he sort of like opens his eyes and he takes that deep breath, and
I've got shivers, Gareth. You're describing it. I've got shivers now.
It's almost spiritual, that look that he does when he opens his eyes, and there's almost this like clarity or something that goes across his eyes, and then he hits that final thing. Like, it's as good a performance, and it was just so like, it was dead like validating as well, I think, because you just had at the time as well, people would just like dismiss, like even though they'd been like massively successful, I think a lot of people like dismiss them for their music, and, you know, claim it was like simplistic and shouty and things like that and stuff. And then like, again, like his performance here didn't do any of the hits, brought loads of covers. Kurt's vocals on this are just like untouchable for me. I just think the way the presentation of the whole thing, everything
candles,
like that,
a lot,
it
isn't
was just absolutely everything. Even like, say, I can just see Dave Grohl on screen there now. I just think about his restraint on drums and him having to use brushes. And you watch Dave, you know, I watch it, and sometimes I'll just watch this and I just watch Dave Grohl, and I just watch how delicate and just restrained he had to be and things to just totally change the volume and tempo and everything about the performance. Like, this is like this is the ultimate. Like, I'll be 80 years old and I'll watch this and it'll just transport me in time to being 15 years old, and I'll get upset. I'll get kind, you know, like it's just it's almost like the time capsule for me of my teenage years is this performance, because it was so good when it happened, but then after he died, it just became like, I don't know, it was almost like it became the legacy almost. This was the thing that you saw forever, and then you saw the pain in his, you know, you heard the pain in his voice and the pain on his face and everything about it. Kind of, it just all just like weave together, and then things just like the set being like funeral like and things like that. All this stuff that just intertwines. It just sorry, I'm getting a bit I'm getting welling up a bit here.
Gareth, I want to dab your face through the screen, lad, with a little screen, actually. I love it, mate.
Honestly, it's just incredible. And then plus, like, one of the things that for us as powerful and as sorry, I told you I would talk about this for an hour if you give me half a chance. As powerful and an emotional as the performance was and things like that, just the little interactions between the bands, like in between the songs as well, it just showed that like character and personality and comedic timing and things like that. And like to me, like Kurt was like, I don't know, he was your everyman. He was like, he felt like me and my mates dicking about at school, like, you know, like winding each other up, but not really, kind of thing and stuff, in the same way he is with Dave Grohl on here, and the little back and forth between them at different points and stuff. Like, it's just I don't know, he's just he just, to me, just represents like Generation X and like the mindset and culturally everything, everything they've just coming through that whole time period.
He changed it, didn't he, Gareth? He fucking changed it.
Oh yeah, forever. And yeah.
Well, you were talking about there were Guns N' Roses. Like, Nirvana was the like very clear representation of where it was, of the direction of, you know, you'd say of metal necessarily, and the development of grunge at this point. Yeah, they did. It went because there was a sense of it just felt authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I put this on today just to remember it basically before I come on here to record. And like those couple of opening chords, as Come As You Are at the beginning, it's just straight away, I know this album from from the beginning to the end. My relationship with this album, being young, is a bit different to Gareth's. I remember hearing my dad play this, and I was wearing Nirvana, and I like Nirvana on the basic fact of it smells like Teen Spirit. That was like nothing I heard of when I was a kid, and loved it from that. It was number one. It was played non-stop, and it was a rebellious song for someone my age. That was a popular song in the charts. But I remember my dad playing this record when I was growing up, and there was always that sense by hearing him play this that there was a validation that Nirvana were good because it's something my dad would listen to. He wouldn't listen. I'm not saying that when I was 9, I was listening to Nirvana, then when I bought a Meat Puppets record, or when I bought Mudhoney, that wasn't the case. Because Nirvana was popular, that was seen as the rebellious band of its time. But just for the sheer fact that someone like me at 9 years old could like that, and then my dad also like it, was such validation that this is good. It's not throwaway pop music that I might like a single of, or something I saw on Top of the Pops that had a flashy character that I know of a TV show. It was, this is good,
Yeah.
And it very much validated it for me. And listening to this today, and I watched a few of the videos, it's just everything about it is iconic. It's, as I said, the opening chords, Come As You Are, Dave Grohl's like turtleneck, playing the brushes, Cobain's cardigan. You just, if somebody mentions this record to you, I guarantee we all have the same image of Kurt on his stool in his cardigan.
1,000,000%.
It's an iconic album. And I'll also just like to point out that it's, as Gareth was saying, at the time of his death, how this album became, as he was played non-stop, it became something more than it was attended to at the time. I also think it's a great insight into what Nirvana may have sounded like in albums after this. Because he always had a problem that he thought the band didn't evolve to where they should be in terms of their ability and the sound that they should have played. And I always think that if the next record was written and was to be released, it would be in a similar path to how this sounded and the songs that he covered and the direction that they were going in at the time.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same as well there. That feeling of it was almost like this is what you could have had. This was what was stolen away from you. You're almost, obviously Pat Smear's in here as like, on rhythm guitar at this point as well, where like, again, I think, Kurt had always thought that Nirvana should have been a 4-piece band, and there's a lot of bollocks around how he was just there because Kurt couldn't play the guitar anymore. That's fucking bullshit. Like, you're just rubbish. Like, it was there because musically it was becoming more sophisticated, and Kurt was looking to broaden things into the way, and it was just, one man on guitar can't do everything that's necessary with what's going on in someone's head of what something should sound like, and and again bringing Pat Smear in was going to build that. But just, I just always think this idea of the albums there that we lost of just Kurt just been a bit more folky and things, that side of thing, the songwriting that would have been like a more acoustic style and things, as that evolved, things just lost. But hey, we've got this.
But Gareth,
there's not many music. There's not many things, live performances, albums that I can throw on just silently and make me feel the way this album makes me feel, and like that's gold, isn't it? To have
but
that.
mate, you're saying we missed out on all of them, and I totally agree with you. But I'm obviously I wish he would have lived so we did hear them things. But like, I'm glad in a way, like we didn't get to see, like, you never knew it could have happened, like Pitbull featuring Kurt Cobain. Can you imagine it though, Gareth? Shit like that it ever come up. No, seriously though, it always crosses my mind, shit like that like, would he eventually have sold out? Would he have done all that shit? You just don't know.
Bottles of piss being chucked at him at like fucking Reading and Leeds in 2010 or something.
It's
like, do you know what I get gatekeepery over it though, with like with Dave Grohl? I sometimes see Dave Grohl doing stuff, and like I'll think, Kurt wouldn't have liked that.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Like, and I'm
He's
almost
still
like,
on his shoulder, Gareth. In all these interviews, he's still over his shoulder, though. I think you know he definitely is. I reckon he is.
I mean, at the time as well, MTV Unplugged was almost like appointment television. You know, when an artist would do Unplugged. Does anybody have any other MTV Unplugs?
I've got the Alice in Chains ones.
I was about to mention that.
Portishead.
Yes, Portishead's good as well.
I like the Pearl Jam one. Neil Young's was good as well.
Yeah.
It felt like I mean, this is like the zenith of MTV as a thing, and the Unplugged thing. It was a test, wasn't it? We were entering in an era of very kind of quite highly commercialized pop yet again, but very, very kind of synthetic. And Unplugged, it was a test. Like, do it acoustically. And I think that's the thing when we talk about like Nirvana, like when you're producing this, it's like you can't be mocked for saying that they can't make music. It's just noise. All the kind of old, what would be grumpy old man yells at cloud type arguments kind of all die a death, don't they? I used to love the Unplugged series.
Boss.
And like, you know, it's and it's something that's, I don't know, you think of what MTV became and everything else about how the idea of the word music became the dirty word. A bit like World Wrestling Entertainment, really, for many years, where the word wrestling was dirty.
Steady on.
No,
I'll just echo what Matty says. If you've only seen a Nirvana Unplugged and not seen the Alice in Chains one, see the Alice in Chains one.
Unbelievable.
Lane Staley in that is
coming back from the wilderness, mate.
I mean, he's a deeply troubled individual, but the power in his voice during that is, I think that's the only one that's close. I also like the Stone Temple Pilots one as well. I always think that was a good Unplugged.
I haven't seen that one, you know. I need to watch that one.
As much as I always think Stone Temple Pilots were industry plants somewhat for a grunge era, that they were created in a boardroom somewhere.
First album's a whopper though, Liam.
and then relocated to Seattle.
Of course, a good album. I always think Velvet Revolver was a better band than Stone Temple Pilots. That's another conversation for another time.
It is.
It also leads us nicely onto our second pillar for this. We've gone through music, but now it's sport. He says, dragging it on. Do you want me to read through these bits on here?
Carry on.
Bust on this one. I mean, the first thing really, first of all, we were talking about the Premier League years of 93, 94. Do you know who won the league in 93, 94?
Man United, really? Yeah. Done the double, didn't he?
Yeah, it was fucking bleak because we were shit at this point in time. And it shows, and as you can see on the highlights here, was on the Premier League years, them up against City. No, this is the England San Marino game. We'll come to the World Cup highlights on there. But there's extensive highlights of the game against City, which they end up winning 3-2, don't they? With Niall Quinn. And it's like, this is the beginning of the Premier League as well. Like at this point in time, Premier League's been we've only had 1 year of it. Is that right?
It's the second season. Yeah,
this is the second season of it.
Yep.
And you've got to remember, Liverpool aren't what they were.
Shocking. We're bad.
Arsenal, definitely aren't where we are. We've got the Dark Prince in. We've decided to sell every good creative midfielder. We're losing at home to Villa, a shit Villa side as well, like quite comfortably. And if Ian Wright wasn't turning up, we were fucked. It was Ian Wright and a defence that caught everyone offside. So yeah, I don't know what was your memories at this point in time. Like, how much were you into football? I know, obviously, Liam, you're a West Brom fan. So, like, where were they at this point in time?
93, 94 is the year they got promotion from League Two back to the old Division 1 Championship against Port Vale at Wembley. That was so. The Premier League at the time was a very far away from us.
And it would have been Villa by. I mean, you have to remember, like, Villa at this point in time, I suppose.
Good team.
They were, weren't they? They were like the remnants of the old First Division. It was like them and Wednesday, who would be Sheffield Wednesday, which seems incredible probably to a whole generation of people. They were the teams that were kind of more competitive. We had Leeds under Howard Wilkinson winning it as well. But I mean, it would have been in the Midlands, wouldn't it? It would have been pretty much Villa with a dominant force. It wasn't like Wolves were in a kind of decline at this point in time. Birmingham City didn't never seemed to be amounting to much at all, were they?
It was very much Villa and everybody else was underneath them, and that maintained for quite a bit as well. Villa were always in the Midlands, particularly Birmingham region. It was always Villa. Villa were always a regular in the Premier League up until a few years ago.
Finished second, didn't they, Liam, in the first season? I'm sure they finished second. In the
they were top of the table one Christmas, I seem to remember. And they had a couple of good seasons. Is it was Ron Atkinson the manager at this point?
Ron Atkinson was manager at this stage, because they mentioned that. At that point in time, he would have been brought back from Spain, wouldn't he? He'd have been off to Spain at some point.
Was it Sociedad? Did he do Sociedad? Was it?
Oh God, he did a few places, didn't he? It was like him and Malcolm Allison were having a chains and tan off, weren't they? Between them, they were like
Terry Venables.
It was, wasn't it? If you were a bit shifty and you like jewellery and sunbathing, like get over to Spain. There was a job for you. Sporting Hehunt, bring him in.
JP, didn't Ron Atkinson buy a player with a crate of champagne instead of money? I'm sure he did.
Oh,
back in the day.
He is no bit like, if he's managing like Sociedad or whatever, it'd be like, I mean, it seems insane. Like, what does Ron Atkinson know about the Basque region? I'm pretty sure he knows how to order basic food and drink in Spanish.
What a ball that was.
That would be as much as he would learn.
Giggs putting that ball across, was it? Because what a fucking ball that was.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget, Ron Atkinson also managed West Brom as well.
Yeah.
Did he?
He went from Manchester United to West Brom.
But he was the one who brought through Cyril Regis and Laurie Cunningham, no?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. In there. And then ruined it all by with the Marcel Desailly comment. And he tried to make up for it. I've spoken about it a few times in a show called Mind Your French, where he was like going back over to France to do halftime punditry entirely in French. Doesn't go that well. Esther Ranson on French telly is much, much better. Ron makes, at best, minimal effort as he's stuck in the house with Esther Ranson and Marcus Bridgestock, which seems wild television. Didn't
he also try and restart his career by appearing on Wife Swap with Tessa Sanderson?
Oh, my God.
Christ.
Are you making this up, Liam?
No. There was a wife swap, and I think from memory, it was Ron Atkinson swap with Tessa Sanderson.
Oh, see, we've also. I mean, I can't see Tessa. I can't see that working at all. I can't see Ron lifting a fucking finger around the house, like nothing. He's not going to do any. He's not doing the washing up, is he? He's going to be sat there having a fucking cigar and bollocking away while expecting Tessa Sanderson to make him his tea.
Look at this suit jacket on Barnes here.
This is for video viewers, by the way. We've put on this bit of the preview. Keegan, who 3 years' time would be completely grey virtually, but by Premier League football did to him.
JP, I love Keegan. Got time for him. Just his line, he's like a wrestling promoter, isn't it? One of the lines he had when he come back to Newcastle was, first and foremost, you got to entertain the fans. I love that. He's what a shout that is. Fucking love it.
He was, wasn't he? He was, but I mean, the way he booked Newcastle, though, it was crazy. It wasn't going to work. It was unsustainable, the way he was booking Newcastle.
When he come back in 08, was it 08, he had Viduka, Martins, and he put Owen attacking mid. He was playing like half-forward strikers as well. Fucking legend, mate. Fucking legend.
Well,
I tell you what, though, you had that Man City United game on. Like that is one of people talk about, like the Liverpool United 3-3 and then the 4-3s with Newcastle. That 3-2 against City is like just etched in my brain. Like it was like I can literally remember coming home from seeing Work It in Town lose 13-12 to London Crusaders, turning the telly on and seeing United were losing 2-0 and being delighted, and then just watching them just come back into that game. And that was that. I just remember vividly feeling like, fucking hell, the steel that there is in that side to come back from 2-0 down in a derby when they look dead and buried and win that. They were just a fucking machine at this point. And it's one of those where you just have to put your club kind of sensibilities to one side and just go on. That unit of lads they had there, what a fucking team they were. Like the mentality of the team, just they were just unstoppable mentally, that group, and especially when they're up against like You know, you've got fucking Liverpool just out on the piss constantly and fucking up to all sorts. You've got, you know, Newcastle.
I think you'll find that Arsenal would very much challenge you at that point in time for going
say,
on the piss.
Arsenal doing the same, you know, just Newcastle just throwing fucking, you know, tactics out of the window and stuff like that. Yeah, okay, there was all that going on, but they just took either way. They just took.
Cantona, Gareth on it though. That bit of X factor as well that he needed. He was just fucking something else, wasn't he?
And
Cantona.
I like Roy Keane in that. I always think I wish Liverpool had bought Roy Keane at the time United did. Like it would have just like what he added that fucking just winning mentality and just grit and just into professionalism and things to the middle of their park and stuff. What a fucking player he is.
Yes,
Gareth, I didn't want to interrupt you, mate, because we had Ollie Reid popping up there, JP, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Fucking legend, mate.
I think we'll turn up certainly in future episodes. I imagine if we get to the word and we don't somehow cover Ollie Reid, I'll be gobsmacked.
Next episode, we'll put that in, definitely.
I'm a fucking co-host on that.
I tell you what, everything comes back to the word because, like, when we were talking about Nirvana, I was thinking about Nirvana playing on the word as well. Snoop Dogg and Rod Hall and everything. Everything just comes back to the word, I think, with this show.
Yes.
It was. And also, I mean, you know, while we're on the football theme, we also had and it was at the start of this clip as well. We had England's San Marino in terms of the qualification for the World Cup. And what were the circumstances?
He had to win by 7, didn't he?
Yeah. They did. Yeah. And it went 1-0 down in, I mean, I say
seconds. I think it was
7. Like 8.3 seconds. Yeah. Stuart Pearce, isn't it? He attempts a back pass and on the back of it, they go 1.
Do I not like that?
Just such a like, and I have to say for this one, like this is a mammoth, and I'll be bringing up like the qualification answers again for video viewers, so you're able to see this, and all the links are going to be in the show description as well. Like the World Cup qualifiers here, these are ones that are like in my head. I mean, the one that comes up on there, and I have to say because I was a Republic of Ireland, I am a Republic of Ireland fan. And like they qualified for their second World Cup by virtue of a 1-1 draw away at Northern Ireland. Now, obviously, complex relationship, no Good Friday agreement at that point in time. Difficult away game, you'd think, in there as well. Alan McLaughlin scoring a belter in a time where the football hadn't gone completely dog shit. At that stage, Noel Quinn was fit, so it was like, oh, we had a striker. But if you go back to try and watch Republic of Ireland in that World Cup in 1994, it's unfucking watchable in places.
I've got a question for you all
that
here.
Italy game.
In these qualifying stages, 9 games in total, how many goals did the Republic of Ireland score? And bear in mind, they only got through to the World Cup on goals. So how many goals did they score in 9 games?
9 goals, if that, I think. 1 a game.
I want to say 7.
Gareth?
I was going to say 7. I was going to go slightly less.
The correct answer is 4.
Fucking hell. Has anything changed, JP, in like 50 years?
It's better now. Like, I mean, they lose games, but at least there's lads who can actually, they attempt to play football. They were so fucking horrendous to watch. I mean, I loved them. And at that point in time, it was like kind of unconditional love. And I just sort of
players though, didn't you? He's had like, you know,
he did, but he didn't like midfielders. He was just basically like treated Liam Brady with utmost suspicion when he came in, and it was just like, nah, kick it over their head, lads. And they're on the piss. They were absolutely. There were no other way. They're on the piss. They're something for chips. Tony Cascarino never should have been Irish qualified, really, technically, because his mother was adopted. So like, it wasn't like his actual grandparents who he got it for, by which point he'd had 83 caps and he was playing in fucking Marseille in the first division, breaking all kind of records. So you're like, fuck it, why not? It seems like good for a laugh just to carry on playing him for a bit. Yeah, it was a...
Did you say they went through on goals scored?
Yeah.
Yep. With 4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was worse than them, Liam?
Mate, do we need to be honest with ourselves and say football was a lot shitter then? Like, really wasn't like kind of.
No, I know what you mean. The shittest back then compared to the shitters now. Yet they were shit, JP. But it was
Yeah.
like, fucking hell.
Minnows were properly shit. Like San
Yeah.
Marino, I know England beat San Marino 10-0 not that long ago, but they'll have fitness levels and the rest of it. Like
Back then.
they were fucking cowboys. Some of these players, like they were, honestly, it was just like Jesus. You'd be like dire football, absolute clogging, and all the rest of it as well. As we're watching clips of Wales's failed World Cup campaign when they tried to missing a penalty through Paul Bowden, which I don't know if does anyone remember that at all? Because that was something that was.
I totally remember this, and I totally remember all the stick Paul Bowden got. And I always, it's like one of those things that even now, when like Wales, people talk about the Paul Bowden miss. Watch these highlights in preparation for this. That first goal, Neville Southall, they might as well have had me in the nets. Like he just fucking he just lets that ball just quite a tame shot, just go like right under his body. Like he just gets off scot free. He's like
Dangerous talk, slagging off Neville Southall in your house. I'd have thought
definitely
Big Nev.
Don't want to be doing that, but like. He's fucking as much to blame as Paul Bowden there. Poor Paul Bowden. He's had to live with this trauma for 30 years.
Yeah.
See that referee then, boys, only about 30.
This, as we watch Eric Young of Crystal Palace and Wimbledon come on. He was always wearing a bandana.
Roll of carpet around his head.
At best, bang average, but he would beat shit out of you as well. I mean, I would say for this qualification period, I don't know how anyone else feels about it. For me, it's how France ballsed up the World Cup qualification.
That's Ginola.
Campaign
Is this
in
Ginola,
94.
wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it 1 point from the last two games they needed, and they were home to Israel and Bulgaria, and they managed to lose both. And it's the Ginola gets blamed for the Israel one, doesn't he?
Yeah.
For
Rightly
this one,
so.
and then.
All
Say
he had to
again.
do was take it. Oh, rightly so. All he had to do was take it to the corner, and then like he tries to put a cross in. No, just
tries to cross
take
it to
the
cancel
corner.
out,
Yeah, you go in the World Cup. Like Houllier never forgave him, did he? Houllier wanted
No.
to fucking murder him for that. Like, and has like called him all sorts in the media afterwards and things. Proper held a grudge there for a long period of time. But the weird thing about this is like. Obviously, all of this happening in one day, isn't it? I think that's the thing of this, that you've got the Wales thing coming down to one game. You've got Ireland. You've obviously got like this Italy, Portugal. You had the England situation needing the 7 goals and that all just happening on one day. What a day of footy that must have been! Like I can't remember.
Not being able to watch it though, Gareth. Probably see the England game. That's it. Now you'd see every minute, wouldn't you?
It's the closest.
This is the stuff about the show, boys. Time. This is it.
It would be a few years, but there was the odd pub. There was a pub you could go to in West Kensington called the famous Three Kings, and it did have satellites from all around the world.
Really?
And they had multiple TVs in multiple corners of the room, in multiple little rooms, so you could just watch games. And I would meet up. This is in the early 2000s. I'd meet up with my mate Andy. He was a Scotland fan. He'd be like, Scotland might be playing at 3, Ireland. I remember playing France away at like 7:30, and in between watching Finland play, Sweden play, and just a day on the beer from 12 through to like fucking midnight. Like occasionally going outside to the little bit round the corner having a smoke, but just like proper heavy duty sessions in a pub and just cheering on Finland, who were being managed by Roy Hodgson at the time, Littmanen and Good Johnson. But that's not November '93, I should say.
You're a Ludwig Borger fan, JP, yeah?
Always, mate.
Just to mention a few things here. This was the last campaign UEFA had for the World Cup before playoffs. So after this, there was all playoffs introduced to go through to the World Cup. Going into this round of game fixtures, Greece, Russia, Sweden, and Norway, plus the holders Germany, were the only European sides that were qualified. 8 remaining places were up for grabs across the 9 fixtures. And just to carry on from another point, that 4 goals in 9 games that I mentioned earlier was actually across the 2 World Cups that Jack Charlton took the Republic of Ireland to. So 1990 and 94, they scored 4 goals in 9 games.
Oh, yeah.
That's fucking shocking, that.
They didn't beat anyone. In Italia 90, they didn't beat anyone.
Draw special.
They won on penalties, all draws. Like, they beat Italy in this, and people think it was a great moment. And
Houghton, isn't it? The chip.
Yeah, but I hate Ray Houghton as a pundit. I think he's one of the worst pundits, like, imaginable as well. He is everything that's wrong with like kind of an old school player doing modern day punditry, where it's just like, he's passion merchants is all what my son would just call them these days.
So, you know
Got a
what?
tactical brain in their fucking body.
Just looking at that replay again of that San Marino goal, fair play to them. They actually fucking attack right from the off.
Yeah, they do.
I know it's Pierce giving it back, but fucking fair play to them.
Winterburn never got a shout. We never got an Arsenal back four for England. And that was part of the reason I found it very hard to sympathise with him. I was like, you could pick the best back five who know exactly how to play with each other, but nah, we need Stuart Pearce and his fucking screaming and his free kicks instead. What a great player.
Do you remember who scored 4 goals for England in this game, JP?
Ian Wright.
Ian Wright.
Ian Wright, who, I mean, I wrote it down in my notes. I was really saddened at this point in time because he was the only, like, pretty much apart from our defence, Ian Wright was the only semblance of kind of creativity in that team. And he never really got a chance of England. It didn't help that he kind of broke through far too late. And then I think after this campaign and the failure of it, it was almost like, right, we need to just kind of scrap that. He would have been in his, I mean, at that point in time, he'd have been in his early 30s, right, as well, no matter how good he was for Arsenal.
He turns up in the 0-0 with Italy, though, doesn't he? In that 98 qualification game. He's there definitely crying his eyes out when we get through. So he does get the odd call up back then, but as you say, he broke through. It was Shearer, but who else was there? Ferdinand, Sheringham, Fowler. Didn't get a look in really, did he, Gareth, for England?
No, that was it. Wasn't it? You think of the goals that Fowler was scoring at the time, and he just couldn't get in.
18-year-old scoring 30 in the Prem, nuts in it.
Couldn't get in. Like, well, at the end of the day, like you look at Shearer's record and the way he linked up with Sheringham and stuff. It's hard to justify like kind of thing. But what a fucking run of strikers he had coming through there. When you compare to what like an England selection these days of like putting 4 strikers in the squad, they can't even do it. Like, you know, it's unbelievable. An embarrassment of riches.
Which they still completely ballsed up. I mean, it was Norway who went through out of that group, wasn't it? It was in the end, and was it Norway and Holland?
Holland were top, weren't they? And then Norway was.
Because we had the incident with Koeman, didn't we?
Was it, or did Holland not get through? No, was it just one team?
No, Holland did get through. Holland beat Poland 3-1, and they were. If Poland had beat Holland, the Republic would have only needed a draw. I think.
Because obviously I threw the line out there before, and it was just the classic Graham Taylor documentary, wasn't it, with that Holland game and
Mike
Koeman should have been sent off, and linesman, you've just cost me my job and stuff, like and always got the commentary like when Koeman's taking that free kick, he's going to flick it, and then he flicks it and he scores, and it's like the commentator even knows what he was going to do, like kind of.
But there was no. It still feels at this point in time like if you think of all the place where England is now as a side, with the amount of players and the amount of depth, which is ridiculous, in a league that is very much the European Super League in kind of in modern form, like it does say a lot, like about how unwilling England were to learn from anything on here. There was never anything about actually we need to think about the way we play. There was still the idea that if you were that term mercurial, if you were like Matthew Letitia, for example, you really weren't getting a shout in this. You absolutely had to. You had to score like a month's worth of banging goals and then go, all right, we'll give you a chance. B team.
But
if you were Colton Palmer, you were there. If you were Jeff Thomas, like you were in there with his, kind of getting called up, like deeply average players getting called up. But there's a lot of shit being produced in the league, wasn't it?
He pulled off Lineker, didn't he, when they needed a goal? And put Alan Smith on.
Alan Smith.
Famously. And he's just like your all-time leading goal scorer, or Alan Smith. I know you'll
probably defend
Alan
in the
Smith
92 Euros?
Yeah, just
against Sweden.
That was just Graham Taylor summed up there, that wasn't it? Not that I cared.
Yeah. But there was also, at this point in time as well, we had big title fight.
Oh, big time, boys.
Proper big title fight on here of Riddick Bowe versus Evander Holyfield 2. Now I'm going to go over to Liam because he is obviously the resident boxing expert here on Grapple. What do you? I mean, I'm assuming what was this on TV in the UK? Was it been on ITV?
No, I think this was a Sky fight. This would have
It was
Sky Sports would have existed then because obviously the Premier
Yeah.
League had started. Whereas before the boxing would have been on Sky Movies, wouldn't it? Wrestling and boxing was on Sky Movies when Sky first started. Yeah, I remember waking up and hearing all about this on the radio and like not being able to picture it at all. But it's wild. It's absolutely wild. This is the second fight of the trilogy, as you mentioned, or probably my favourite heavyweight trilogy. Wilder versus Fury of recent times probably runs it close, and I don't really have that connection with Ali Fraser as the generation before me, like my parents and uncles, and that probably had. Story behind this: Evander Holyfield was a cruiserweight. Won titles at cruiserweight, was being set up for a fight with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson lost to Buster Douglas. Mike Tyson went to jail. Evander Holyfield was left without a dance partner. Fought George Foreman. Fought George Foreman. I think he fought Larry Holmes.
I think he did fight Larry Holmes.
Fought Larry Holmes. Didn't stop either of them, so there was always a question of him being too small at heavyweight.
Yeah.
Beat Buster Douglas for the world title after Douglas beat Tyson. That's how Holyfield became world champion. The first fight, Bo won on points, making him the world champion. This was the rematch to this, outside in Caesar's Palace, which was quite a popular venue at the time, out in a car park, I think it is, in like a makeshift stadium in the desert heat. It was a big fight at the time. I mean,
same year as WrestleMania 9.
I was going to say, this WrestleMania 9, isn't it, Liam?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it would be the same venue. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that later in the year. Yeah, that would be right. Yeah, This is a bit of a different fight, but I mean, it had to be with everything that goes on to it. The third fight's probably the best fight. Spoiler warning: they do fight for the third time in the trilogy, and which they obviously would do, being a trilogy. Good fight, but. More known for what happens from, is it the 6th round on?
7th round.
Seventh round.
Yeah.
So Matty,
outrageous.
outrageous. Did you know about this before you watched it?
No, as I say, I've got a good friend, my mate Joey, who's like, he lives for boxing, Liam. Like, you'd get on with him. He really like is a proper, like, he lives for it. And when I texted him I was doing this podcast, I said, I'm just watching Holyfield Bow 2. He said, why on earth are you watching that? I was like, and I've just had to explain, obviously. And I was just, he was texting me. I was texting him after every round, and he was saying, let me know how you scored and all. Because he did, when I used to like sit with him and watch it, I was like around the time, Liam, of like De La Hoya, Trinidad, fucking Mosley and all them, Hopkins. So I watched all the big fights with him around then. But he's like, more of a historian. And what a scrap, though, Liam. This is like, it makes me want to watch the first one and the third one because this is fucking, it's proper, though, isn't it, Liam? The proper stuff. You got Buffer on the announcing, Mills Lane is the referee. It's full on fucking like proper boxing in it as well. I love all that side of it. Like,
it's event heavyweight boxing that you're not, even if you weren't into boxing, you would know it was a major sporting event and you would make an effort to see it. Which I think with the fragmentation of boxing now is not necessarily the case outside of a few things. But yeah, for people that don't know, this is the fan man fight that during the 7th round, a paraglider who was circling the venue in the Caesar's Palace car park gets his parachute stuck in the lights. Yeah, crashes down to ringside where he's then beaten up by the ringside observer.
Oh, he gets filled in big time, but he gets fucked up.
For those watching on the video, you can see the lads just running across, steaming in with some punches.
Well, the story is that where he landed, Louis Farrakhan and Jesse Jackson were sitting there, and they initially thought it was a terrorist attack on both of them. So they instinctively started beating him up, I imagine. But after this, when this is all calmed down, the fight is stopped for 26 minutes, I think. Riddick Bowe's wife, who's ringside and pregnant at the time, collapses.
Liam, I was watching this, mate, right? Honestly, sorry to interrupt. And I was like, this is fucking incredible. It is like a proper, like a film, wrestling. It's over, isn't it? It's like, it's fucking unbelievable.
The thing, watching this back, the way they shoot the parachutist as he's coming into the. It's like they knew it was going to
Yeah, it's like
happen.
a setup.
How it's filmed is like, before the age of drones and whatnot. The way it's filmed, it's like it was almost like there was a camera waiting for this to happen.
Yeah.
There he is, coming in on the background there.
There he is, look.
It is. It's lovely. It's a proper over the shoulder. You got Riddick Bowe there. You got it perfectly kind of framed between them. And what are the other sporting events that he had kind of crashed at this point in time?
Look at that! What a visual that is! Look at that! Just look at that, though. The Mirage.
Well, who's filming that if you don't know it's going to happen?
You know,
They had multi-angle, didn't they? There's multi-angle.
Question marks.
I'm assuming this is the camera that you see a lot on big boxing events in Vegas.
Yeah.
Is that
where they just get the lights in.
They filmed they filmed like the Vegas
The strip and
to give it a context of where it is. But this guy, the parachutist, his name was James Miller, also circled the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum when the Denver Broncos played the Raiders in 1994. So after this, and a little closer to home, he flew low over Bolton Wanderers versus Arsenal in a 4th round FA Cup match in Bolton.
We lost that, didn't we?
I don't know. I'm assuming so.
You always bloody lose to them at that point in time, and then it came back up when Allardyce took over. I was gutted. John McGinley would score and stuff like that. I'd just be fucking pissed off. And then Bruce Rioch came in and told Ian Wright, be more like John McGinley. And then fucking Wrighty just was like, this bloke's not staying. And then Wenger came.
But yeah,
for shot here though. Look at this again. Sorry, but I'm just honestly, this is honestly, no one's ever seen this. Just put it on from the start and just sit back, get your popcorn, and just watch this fucking fight. It's unbelievable.
I would go further and say watch all 3 fights. It's as good a boxing trilogy as you
Liam,
watch.
I'm definitely going to, mate.
The narrative that's through that, and just to give it a bit of context afterwards. After this was obviously, I think there was a fight in between they both had, and then you had the 3rd fight. Riddick Bowe only had 2 other fights after that.
Yeah.
He famously gave up his WBC belt by dropping it in the bin, so he didn't have to fight his mandatory contender, who was Lennox Lewis.
Big Medusa fan.
I was going to say, done it all, Medusa there.
Very much so. And obviously, to the wider general public, Holyfield's career kind of started after this. He had the 2 fights with Tyson.
Obviously, the ear-biting one.
The ear-biting one as well. Then he fought Chris Bird at heavyweight. He fought James Toney at heavyweight. And a thing that a lot of people forget is that he fought Nikolai Valuev the fight before David Haye fought Valuev. And Holyfield clearly won that fight, but didn't get the decision. So
karma that, Liam, for the Lewis fight, though, mate. That's karma that.
Yeah, the first Lewis fight that was scored a draw was very much shocking. But whilst I was just reminding myself of Riddick Bowe and what he did in his career afterwards, I was on Wikipedia earlier today. And does anybody remember this? Let me just bring this up. After he retired.
I think I know what this is going to be.
In 2013, Riddick Bowe announced his intentions to start training to be a professional wrestler. He was to make his debut for UK-based Preston City Wrestling on March the 1st, 2014. On December 14, 2013, Preston City Wrestling announced on their Facebook page that Bowe would no longer be appearing due to a disagreement with Bowe's new agent. Does anybody remember that?
No chance.
I can remember. I can remember that because it was when I think of Riddick Bowe, it's like something that like comes into my head. Like as soon as you started talking, I thought he's going PCW here.
Is it like what is it FWA tried to do with Danny Williams?
Yes, yeah.
I remember that.
They tried to do the Alex Shane Danny Williams match, yeah.
And that was after Danny Williams had beaten Tyson, no?
Yes, Danny Williams had beaten Tyson, so they shot that angle, and then before the Shane match, Danny Williams got offered the fight with Vitaly Klitschko, so I had to go into training camp for that, which scuppered that whole idea. Obviously, he lost to Vitaly Klitschko, and then that whole angle was never talked about again.
What do you make? What do you make of Riddick Bowe, Liam? Like he was always like, if this was at this time period where I just felt like boxing was a bit more simple and it was a bit more accessible. So I definitely watched a lot more boxing on the regular, and I always liked Riddick Bowe. Like he always felt like he had a sort of a bit of unfilled potential, but he always looked a bit. He always felt unstoppable to me. Like I just felt like no one could beat. Like no one could.
He only lost once, Liam, didn't he?
Yeah, very much so with Riddick Bowe. Is that he's one of those great what if stories. By all accounts, he liked his food and would blow up in fights, between fights, and a lot of his training camp was to lose the weight. Him versus Lennox Lewis at the time would have been the fight to determine who the best heavyweight in the world was when Tyson was in prison. If you look at Bowe outside the Holyfield fight, he never fought Lewis, he never fought Tyson, so there's a lot of questions left about him of what his victories were. He was always good. He always, there was moments when he flashed. I mean, beating Holyfield is no mean feat. No mean feat at that time.
He's a tough customer, and he's rough.
He was, but he's always been one of those questions that if he dedicated himself to the sport a little bit more than he did, how good he would have been. And I think a lot of people do hold him up as a really good heavyweight, but on a resume point of view, whereas he's beat good fighters in his career, there was a lot of unanswered questions with him. I mean, he beat Michael Dokes, he beat Holyfield, he beat Herbie Hyde. He had those 2 fights against Andrew Glotter, who, if you don't remember, if you've never seen them 2 fights, you want to talk about controversy in a fight, you've never seen Andrew Glotter versus Riddick Bowe, where almost riot breaks out in Madison Square Garden.
I'll have to watch this. Liam, send me a list of fights that are just chaotic, mate. I'll be watching these.
I remember these. I remember watching these like just fucking chaos. That isn't it? Absolutely mental.
Yeah.
No spoilers, mate.
Yeah, no spoilers, Matty.
Well, boys, I've got 3. Can I just make 3 points about this? Not about the fight, but about the surroundings. You've got to talk about Riddick Bowe's feeler hat and his jumper, Liam. I mean, what a fucking combo they were. Fucking unbelievable. You got Larry Merchant with a line of the only sequel that's good as Godfather 2. I hope this lives up to it. And for me, it's just so ironic. You've got George Foreman on commentary slating it's Foreman and it's slating Bowe. He's ate too many pork chops and ribs. And Merchant goes, pork's clean. He goes, I know it's clean, he's just ate too much of it. And George Foreman just throw it on the grill in a few years.
I was going to say, you wouldn't have an issue then. That would have, I mean...
He's fuming though. But
he didn't like Bowe, did he?
No, he was fucking fuming. Proper stuff though, boys. As you say, with Bowe's wife getting put in the ambulance when she's faint pregnant, it just adds to it all, doesn't it? Fucking great stuff.
Yeah.
Proper fat shaming Riddick Bowe as well, talking about him like having his leg shorts pulled up higher than his belly and stuff like that because he's got his bad condition to hide and stuff. I was thinking you wouldn't get away with that these days. Like,
but Bowe tries to go low loads in this though, Liam, doesn't he? He tries to go low.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But I had it 7-5 to Evander. I scored it 7-5. So
well, there's always been a bit of a consensus with this fight that Holyfield was on his way to clearly winning this. Before the interruption itself, and then afterwards it was a much more closer fight than it should have been, and then that both men were put up. But I mean, with Bowe, as I says, he's always been a great what if, and it's a shame he didn't fight more of the heavyweights of his era to see where exactly he was historically.
Yep. Brilliant. Yeah. Check it out, everyone. And Liam, as I say, after this, mate, send me a list and I'll be catching up on these mid-90s fights for sure.
Another couple of very kind of quick sports notes. Notable really at this point in time. We had the November 4th, you had the NBA awarding its 28th franchise to Toronto, the Raptors, which, if you want an idea of like expansion teams sort of not going and winning, what was it? It was 2019 where they win their title. So, you're talking, 26 years before they would actually kind of do that. And we also had November 30th in a wrestling context. We had the Jacksonville Jaguars, or let's just start calling them the London Jaguars because that's the direction it's going in. They're not going to be there for too much longer, I don't think. But they became the 30th franchise in NFL history. And then, I mean, God, how many times have they even reached the playoffs in that time in their history?
They're doing well now, aren't they? Though I don't follow NFL, but I've been told that they're like going to be good over the next few years. Is that right? I hope not. Like,
They had a couple of first-round draft picks. They appeared. They had a great second half to the season, didn't they? This is where I'm going to hand over entirely to
Liam.
Gareth and Liam.
I haven't Gareth. Yes, sorry.
They made the playoffs this season. Sorry, Gareth. Go.
I was going to say they've improved, but with the Jags, I always think you never know. Like, they sometimes show seeds or signs of like improvement, and then something seems to happen. There'll be some incident with a head coach or something that will just sort of, some player that they've drafted will then, suffer some fucking disaster.
Eat some muffins and start calling his teammates.
Something. There's been plenty of times I've thought, oh, the Jags are on the up, and then the following year they've just like flattered to deceive and things. So I don't know. They just seem to just be one of those sides to me that have the curse on them.
They made the playoffs this season, and their quarterback that they drafted number 1 2 years ago, Trevor Lawrence, looks like he's turning the corner and becoming the player that they thought they drafted. So they're, I would say, on an upswing at the moment, but as Gareth says, they are notorious for looking good one year and then everything that can be wrong happened to them the season after, and then they win 2 games.
Right. Touch of the Newcastles here about them, isn't it? Pre-Saudi money.
Touch of the AWs about them.
Yeah,
to the
typical.
Can't capitalize on like a big moment or something like that. Don't follow through well.
Leads us nicely on to our third pillar, and that's film. And I want to ask Gareth to go through here the top 10 list of what was in.
Get your Barry Norman on, Gareth. Get your Barry Norman impression on here. Oh, what a tune! What a tune!
What a fucking tune!
One of the
proper
best
fucking tune.
Yeah.
At number 10, we've got Hocus Pocus. At number 9, we've got Dave, the Dave Meltzer story there. Great movie, that one. 8, we've got The Concierge. At 7, we've got So I Married an Axe Murderer. At number 6, we've got The Remains of the Day, which helpfully came out to help me through my GCSEs.
Lucky bastard. You had that. I didn't. Fucking Age of Innocence A-level, man, and I hated the film as well. Shit.
It may well have been my A-levels, actually, Remains of the Day. I can't remember, but I definitely had the film to guide me through it as opposed to having to read it. Number 5, Jurassic Park. Number 4, The Man Without a Face, which
Mel Gibson directed it.
I don't remember that.
Who's in it? Who's in it, JP?
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson's in it as well.
Yeah. I don't remember that. Number 3, Demolition Man. Number 2, Hard Target. You might be able to get a good poster of that somewhere.
I was going to say.
Number 1, it's Aladdin. Any films there in the top 10 jump out for anybody for any particular reason?
Hard Target, isn't it? You got to start there, boys. Van Damme, long wig, the laugh, just fucking brilliant.
Are we in which stage of Van Damme's career are we? We had Time Cop before this.
Oh,
was it after this? So this is where his films are getting big cinema releases, but they're still basically 18s.
This is John Woo, isn't it? Is this Woo?
Yeah, this is Woo.
Yes.
Yeah.
But for Hard Target, and everything John Woo at that point in time was just like
slow motion explosions.
Oh yes,
isn't it?
You haven't lived until you've jumped through a window holding 2 babies with a gun in each hand, have you? Shooting at a lad like across the way.
Is scene in this though where he's doesn't he like basically surfboard the motorbike like going along or something? I remember he's just like surfing on the motorbike in slow motion. It's fucking iconic, lad.
It is the setup, the usual one of The Deadliest Prey of All Is Man, isn't it? And it's the usual rich people hunting a group of poor people out in the woods.
I love your breakdown of films, JP. I can listen to it all day.
It is. I love it. I was thinking, I've seen all of this list, like all of the films in.
No, there's a few I haven't seen. I'm number 4 for sure. Man Without a Face. I'm with Gareth there. Never even heard of it. And The Concierge, who's in that?
Michael J. Fox.
No.
Yeah, he wants to build his own hotel, doesn't he? Am I right in this? Yeah,
that's right.
And he's the concierge. And in the end, it turns out the tight bloke has not been giving him a tip along as he's hooked up with a woman of this richer bloke in order to get his hotel financed. Trust me, we'll get into more problematic fucking story descriptions later on when we get to Goodnight Sweetheart. But it's sorry, I've completely spoiled it for you as well. But yeah, it was Michael J. Fox. He was like kind of
No, I'll never watch
It's
it,
like
JP.
by
don't
the
worry.
numbers, Michael J. Fox. If you've ever seen things like, what was that thing where he plays a doctor in a small town or something like that?
Doc Hollywood. Doc
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Doc
Teen
Hollywood
Wolf's a
is-
classic with J. Fox, though. I did like that
Oh,
back
yeah.
when I was a youngster. Yeah.
Or as Sarah once said, Teen Wolf, does that star Michael Parkinson? Clearly getting two things mixed up in her head there.
Fucking hell.
Shock.
I love bringing that up to her.
There's a few.
Totally innocent. Totally innocent.
Can I give a shout out as like for Dave?
Good
Ivan
film.
Reitman comment. I think it's fucking great with Kevin Kline having to kind of play an impersonator. Like he's a presidential impersonator who, when the real president has a severe stroke that puts him in a coma, he has to pretend to be president, which is, I swear to God, is a genuinely good film. And I remember feeling like, I remember the first time I seen it, I was like I was like quietly welling up when him and Sigourney Weaver get together at the ends. It was like
You were
was
saying
like,
get it on then, weren't you, JP?
well, it wasn't really that type of film, Matty, to be honest with you. Ving Rhames plays the secret. He plays his secret service agent. Frank Langella as the bad guy. Ben Kingsley as the vice president.
Some big
Like,
actors here.
Hey, Reitman, who directed Ghostbusters as well. Like, you know, not to be sniffed at. It's
That's
proper
why
fucking
Weaver's there
lineup.
then. Fucking hell.
And Hocus Pocus has recently got a sequel on Disney Plus, but I've seen that first one, but like,
The IWC one on the Sly Hocus Pocus boys, it's for some reason it's like regarded as this like mythical film, and it's like, is it that good? You know, is it? Anyone seen it?
It's okay. Yeah.
There's a kid film she's playing a fucking witch.
It's just
Oh, what?
honestly-
What is it? Is it better than the piano? Probably, actually. Again, weren't allowed to say that at the time. We were watching the piano. Oh, it looked beautiful. I'm fucking bored. I want to go to sleep. Shit.
Demolition Man boys want to still own what weakest or good, or what are we saying?
Proper film.
Funniest.
Oh, okay.
It's a strange film in the sense that it's more of a culture clash comedy. Like the bit where he's having sex, he says in inverted commas, with Sandra Bullock and stuff like that, and having to swear in order to get paper so he can wipe his ass. Like, why is everything a Taco Bell? Like, I loved that film, but I loved Dennis Leary at that point in time as well, which he was in that. And then I'd watched Bill Hicks and I went, oh, right, he's just stolen all of his material off this bloke then, hasn't he?
Did being a fan of Dennis Leary compel you to start drinking Holston pills at the time?
No. Well, they sponsored Tottenham Hotspur. So like, they'd completely nullified itself. I'm
Definitely
not
on
drinking
the
that. No chance. Like, I wouldn't have bought a Sharp telly because of Man U, probably, if I had my way.
I stopped eating Muller yogurts for a bit in the 90s as well.
I know Gareth did have a candy washing machine though at some point.
And when I was buying tinned ham in the 80s, it was never Hafnia. That's all I can say that for any people recalling Everton's 84 kit. The one on this, though, that bugs me is the So I Married an Axe Murderer, because I loved Wayne's World so much, and then I remember really disliking So I Married an Axe Murderer, and I don't think I've ever watched it again in my life.
I reckon you'd like it now, Gareth, though.
I think you'd like it now.
I reckon you'd like that now.
I remember thinking it was so disappointing, and like just like, I don't know. Wayne's World was just like on a pedestal for me, I think, at the time there, just for that type of Myers was like excellent at that, and then just So Married an Axe Murderer, it just didn't hit the mark with me. It was a bit corny and stuff like I don't just
give that a watch, Gareth, in the
maybe
next few months. Let's see what you're.
His singles run never worked out, did it? Broke him out of a tag team, and it didn't work with him and Dana Carvey.
I mean, Austin Powers was.
Sorry, actually, I've forgotten about that, haven't I? Completely, which was a massive fucking success. Sorry, ignore me.
Shrek, I know it's not; it's animated, like, but JP isn't. Speaking of Wayne's World, isn't Beecher in one of the in Wayne's World?
Oh yeah,
he is.
He's the mate.
Yeah,
Beecher. He is.
Liam's gone there.
Is this an Oz reference?
It is.
Sorry, Gareth, yeah. But I only got on. I'm sure either you told me or Benno told me. But yes, Cork. I went. It's
almost like Beecher before his drink driving car accident, and what happens to him afterwards.
Yeah.
Wayne's World, happy-go-lucky, working on a nice sort of TV show. Seems very happy. then ends up having the swastika tattooed on his arse within like 15 minutes of arriving in prison. So,
Are we in agreement, going back to Demolition Man, that this was the start of Stallone's slide?
Oh,
Or do we think he's still got another couple of films? I mean, for reference, before Demolition Man was Cliffhanger.
I like Cliffhanger. I do like.
Yeah,
that.
I think Cliffhanger.
Good, but not as. It was a great trailer. It wasn't ultimately as good as it could have been.
John Lithgow's the baddie.
So these
Damn
are
you,
the,
Walker! Yeah.
Yeah.
these are the Stallone films after Demolition Man. Right, fucking hell. The Specialist,
Oh,
shit.
Stone, not good.
Judge Dredd,
Wow.
Oh.
No, I'm not a fan.
Shocking.
Assassins with Antonio Banderas,
I have to watch that again.
I
wanted
to like a bit of shit.
Daylight,
I like Daylight in the tunnel.
remember
I'm a big fan of that. Big fan.
Copland, which I kind of like, but I think I'm the high man on that. I think.
Now it's
No,
clear
I'd-
he only got paid 25 grand just to act with all them, didn't he? He only took like 25 grand paycheck. I like that film. Good.
Started enjoying the scram, didn't he, for a few months as well?
Yeah.
Nash wouldn't do that. What a mark.
Nash would have been paid the same for some of the shit he has made, honestly. And I'm not talking about the Punisher either.
But yeah, I think that's the downside.
It is.
As his main event like status in a GP, it's definitely on the slide here. Definitely.
Hey, Tulsa King apparently is all right. So
I thought that,
That is good. That is good. I do like that.
This is the parallel though with the music industry. This is where your 80s hair metal bands. This is where your 80s action heroes are going down, and then you start to get your Tarantinos and things coming through. As
love
like
it, Gareth. What a fucking I love that.
Thing, like your Nirvanas and things like that. It's that societal
shift in it. Yeah,
it is a massive shift as well. And I think Jurassic Park in there, which to like. I always think of that. Something I was really into my film magazines at that point in time, so I was always buying like kind of Empire. It was Total Film, and I'm trying to think of the other one that was out around that point in time.
Sight and Sound. Do you know?
Oh, I was buying Sight and Sound, yeah, Neon as well.
Was Empire the big one, JP? Was that
Empire was the big one, but like, I mean, I know the moment they gave Phantom Menace 5 stars, I went, I'm checking out of this. I want nothing to do with this anymore.
That was the jump the shark point, wasn't it, for Empire?
It was.
It's funny. It was like because it literally, I used to have a fucking stack of Empires like that. It was the Bible. If Empire said something was good, I believed it was good. If it was shit, it was
completely reject. But the problem, that summer you had Jurassic Park versus Last Action Hero. Last Action Hero with a big Hollywood star with loads and loads of cameos, you know, which in a pre-Avengers era, you didn't have big stars in films together because it just cost too much money. So you had this, and then you had no stars in all like kind of quirky acts. Fucking Laura Dern from Wild at Heart and Blue Velvet at that point in time in like Jurassic Park, and it wasn't even a contest. So you kind of moved into like, this is the beginning of the SFX driven era as well, but also, you know, when it's Sex, Lies and Videotape is kind of out, you know, around this point in time, we've kind of got the rise of, you know, I think 94 is like a kind of seminal year in the sense you've got Pulp Fiction
and all that, yeah.
But you've also got things like you've got like things that, like Shawshank Redemption, which weren't box office hits, but then became these kind of
he's still having
films
a go
that take
Two Lies, though, boys. Two Lies is all right. That's still 94. And he's still like flying the flag, Gareth, for the big names.
It's not the same though, is it?
No, he's still on the way down, though, I'm saying, but I do like Two Lies, you know what I mean? It's an underrated one.
Hogan-esque, isn't it? Really, is where he is at this point. He's had that big Bash of the Beach match with Ric Flair by playing some of the old hits and the rest of it. That's what True Lies is.
I can't see Jurassic Park in like I can't see those two words together without just thinking how massive Jurassic Park was, the amount of fucking marketing that was behind it, how prevalent, how popular it was, all the newspapers, TV, and everything like that, and then going to the local cinema and working and then like queuing around the corner, literally right around the corner of the building to go and see it, and some bloke coming up next to us in the queue next to me and my mate Nigel and going, "Is this the queue for Jason Park?"
Fucking hell.
And we were just like, Jason Park, like, you know, like I can. It's like permanently etched in. I cannot see Jurassic Park without seeing it as Jason Park now in my brain. That bloke I was like, how can you not know that it's Jurassic? Like,
Should be a spin-off of John Wick, really, Jason Park, shouldn't it?
Can I
Along
tell you
those-
though, boys? Jurassic Park was probably the first time I ever went to cinema that I can remember. And that's just come to me there, like the first film I ever remember. And do you know, Gareth, do you know where St. John's is now with the steps and that?
Yeah.
There used to be a cinema on the corner there, you know, where like...
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
I remember being Event Horizon in there. It was so spooky, like, just because of the setting of the building. Like,
Yeah, really good, wasn't that? I remember going in there to watch that, like, one of my aunties and uncles took me to see that. Yeah, just a little tip there for you there, boys.
I just remember with Jurassic Park that it was merchandised everywhere.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember like having Jurassic Park t-shirt. I think I had a lunchbox and stuff. It was one of the first things I remember movie-wise that there was just merchandise for it everywhere.
Yeah. And it was, I didn't get to not, and at this point in time, I was going to films a hell of a lot, and it was a case where I couldn't get to see this for like 2 weeks. I was going to see it in Muswell Hill rather than like Turnpike Lane because screenings were selling out and there were like long queues and the rest of it because this wasn't something at that point in time. It wasn't just kids. It was everyone. It was kids and adults, and and it was a PG, but it had a lad being eaten on a toilet and Samuel L. Jackson's arm being bitten off, and you're like, yeah.
JP, another reason why this is we're doing this, people might be listening to this, the younger generation thinking, what, they actually queued to go and watch a film in the cinema down the block? It's like not press play on a Steam fucking console or whatever.
Or if you're going to the cinema now, and I've been to see a couple of films in the last few weeks, very rarely does cinemas ever seem to be sold out.
I did ask the guy that a couple of years ago, and he said for the bonds you get like a bit of bit of traction, but that's about it really. Not even the superhero films or nothing. It's weird.
Do you know what there probably would have been as well as queuing round the corner, as well as being absolutely packed inside? There was probably an interval as well, so you could get an ice cream mid film. Like,
yeah,
maybe
I miss an interval at the cinema.
I do.
Little lady coming down the front with a thing on her with selling her ice creams down the front in front of the screen.
We're saying that, boys, isn't this the time of like the pirate videos though as well? This is very prevalent, isn't it, around the early 90s?
Yeah, but they're shit copies. Like,
they'd be
cool.
like out the cinema, wouldn't they? They would literally be out the cinema. Yeah,
cam rips, as we think of it. The idea of if it's 720, I'm like, I'm not bothering me ass with that. Like 1080p or nothing.
Think of all the grainy wrestling you've watched over the years, and you turn up your nose at fucking 720.
I know. Such a fucking snob. And then like you'll put on some all Japan stuff, man. Trust me, at some point, like 96. What the fuck is this? We haven't mentioned Aladdin, of course. It was number one. Did anyone? I went to the cinema to see that.
Yeah, probably got took to see that as well. Yeah, after Jurassic Park or whatever.
And I was 15, but I think at that point in time, like I can remember going to see it because I think my sister wanted to see it. And then sort of taking me, and I had no other reason to say no to it other than I wasn't having to pay for the ticket. So I was like, why? But that was all right. I've seen the remake of it as well.
As the genie, he's unbelievable in that, like fucking funny.
And Remains of the Day. Has anyone watched that?
Yeah,
up in Gareth. Yeah, I have to say, the idea of period films in and of themselves make me livid because at their core. It's this posh person fancies this other posh person, but this other posh person is slightly posher than them. So they got to live fucking miserably, marrying people who are fucking cold. And then they meet each other and they touch each other's cheek and then they fucking cry and die. That seems to be like pretty much how these things tended to go. And
that was my essay about the Remains of the Day. You've just recited that.
I'm so bad like that about like, and it was all and it was at this point in time that we had Merchant Ivory films every year on here, and it was like, oh, this Merchant Ivory film. And I was like, well, I'm never going to go and see that. That's never. If I can get away with it, I'll never see that film, unless of course you had to watch something like that for English coursework.
Can I just say, another note on Aladdin, boys? I mean, A Whole New World for me, probably still the greatest Disney song for me. Like anyone else got any others that come close? Anyone? Whole New World, bosh.
Circle of Life, Elton John.
Ah,
You've Got a Friend in Me, Randy Newman.
Good shouts, boys. These are good. These are good. Gareth, come on.
That Frozen song's a banger. I'm not gonna...
There you go.
Let it go.
Oh, love a bit of that.
How many times were you made to watch Frozen?
Oh God,
I was going to say, you're keeping it fresh there, Gareth.
countless times.
Love it.
Oh, well, nicely brings us to the final pillar of today, and I'm going to go to you, Matty, and it's television.
Right, well, we've got to, I say, the genesis, one of the reasons behind this whole thing was the Weird Boys. We've got to start with that, haven't we? I mean, did we all watch this episode full? And anyone want to care to go through the rundown of people that are on screen, JP?
Yeah. I, like, Jesus Christ, when looking at this lineup, so you're starting off with a 19-year-old Dave Chappelle. Obviously, your hosts, like your big hosts, your big three, Terry Christian, Mark Lamar, Danny Bear, who was a terrible presenter, and it becomes even more evident this. But we do have a new presenter for this, don't we? In Hufty for this, who I don't remember much of, and that's probably good fucking reason for that.
Terry Christian, though, JP, I mean, did anyone like him? Did anyone ever like him?
Do you know what? I hated Terry Christian my whole life,
Yeah.
and we hired him to present a charity do through my work, and he was proper sound. Like he
Was
was
he?
dead. He was a real like sound bloke. He was dead funny, dead nice, and that. And I was just like, oh, I've spent 25 years hating you. And you know what? Like, I'll stick up for Terry now.
He was
always good though as well back in the day on Buzzcocks and stuff, wasn't he? He was good.
He was also my hair inspiration with that quiff before I shaved it all off.
And it is weird. I mean, I'm going to do the rundown of the other people on it. We had live performances from
Welcome
Onyx,
back to the wonderful world of the word. We kick off our first show with soccer's sexiest skinhead Vinnie Jones,
Vic and
America's
Bob.
hottest stand-up Dave Chappelle.
There's a piece on Nick Berry and one of the guys from E17 where they're like showing kind of like early photos of the kind of tabloid way,
down at the gay rodeo with the cowboys.
Something about gay rodeo,
and we'll unveil the
which
world's
doesn't age
fourth
well.
musketeer,
No,
our
it does
brand
it
new
with
presenter.
2023 eyes there, and then a big piece on Vinnie Jones. At the end, where he's kind of playing golf and stuff like that. Do I need to turn the volume down? Is it far too loud? There we go. Apologies.
You didn't hear much of that, JP.
Right. I'll leave it in for the video bit, see if I'll do something with the edit. But just to go through the guests who were on here, obviously, starting off with Terry Christian, Danny Bear, Mark Lamar, 19-year-old Dave Chappelle, who appears to sound entirely different at this point in time. Then you had Onyx, live performance from them, one from Pulp. You've got the Hopefuls on there as well, the famous one of the guy snogging the old woman after she takes her teeth out. Vic and Bob turn up because it's at this stage it really is Vic Reeves with Bob Mortimer is kind of how it felt on Channel 4 because you had Vic Reeves' Big Night Out on there. And then there's a piece on Nick Berry, something about gay rodeos, and they round things up with a bit about Vinnie Jones.
Following them round, they go on a Dean Aldrich stag do, don't they? Mark Lamar's invited to Dean Aldrich. And the whole
I was going to say, I noticed Holdsworth sat next to him, and I thought, well, Holdsworth had been all over these fucking sessions at that point in time.
Sure he wasn't going with Danny Bear at the time, JP? Holdsworth.
We ended up with Jordan, didn't he?
He was with Lindsay Dawn McKenzie as well. He was with a few of them back in the day, Holdsworth.
That sounds exactly right.
On a snide clobber watch here, what did we think of that? what did we think of the pink shirt waistcoat combo on Alvin?
Mate.
He had some looks going on, didn't he, on the golf course, even full on tracky on the golf course.
Waistcoats were a big thing then, though. I remember that.
He loved it,
like,
didn't he?
Everybody having a you talk about like shirt and trousers for like night out. I just remember lads just looking smart in the waistcoats, silk waistcoats.
Gareth, you better be wearing them on a wedding party, mate. We better be wearing them on then.
Can we wear baggy shirts? It was like, it was very much like you think of the Spice Boys with Liverpool. It's like this is where they got this is the inspiration of that point in time.
He was getting charged a 70 grand fine or whatever over the season. How much was he on a week then, Jones? He mustn't have been on that much. You're not on with your £5 back then, was he? Roy Keane, Barnes was on 10 grand. That was a big deal, wasn't it? He mustn't have been on that much.
No, to be fair, he must have been doing all right. I mean, did you see that oil painting of him and Gazzery commission? I must have pumped you.
The one from his mate.
Did you Did you get onto it though, boys? I'm calming down. I'm getting older now. I'm 28. That's what he said.
Yeah.
That's what he fucking said.
Well, it's like you're getting to management. Oh, definitely management. Wouldn't mind doing a little bit of telly, and I'm thinking within 3 years you've entirely like fucking jacked in football, and you have to say it's been a hell of a fucking film career for him. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, most films are shit, but in terms of living a life, didn't he always play for that team out in LA as well, wasn't it? That was made up of like Hollywood actors and the rest of it.
Yeah.
That used to play basically fucking five-a-side or whatever.
His finest hour, though, was sharing a couple of Steve Wises with Steve working at Campbell's Carnage. If he come on, that's one of his finest hour. We've covered that. Like, what a
Is that what he does?
Yeah.
It's going to get emotional when he comes out in his leather jacket from Lock Stock.
It's going to get emotional. What a show. Don't finish here.
The words, though, is, as a show, like, it's fucking wild, isn't it?
It's the Wild West, JP.
Unorganized chaos. There's loads of stuff where, like, the crowd are there, they're not reacting to stuff. Like, they're just... So there's loads of uncomfortable silence as Terry Christian will make a kind of little sly comment and whatnot.
They're not laughing, though, are they? They're not even, like...
They're not laughing at all.
Dave
Chappelle's caned, mate. He's properly caned.
They're saying, like, where are you going on a night out? And he's like, anyone in the audience want to shout? And they're shouting everywhere. Nottingham, Birmingham, they're shouting everywhere. And it's like, there's no way to look.
Yeah, because he goes to a club in Leicester Square, which even, I have to say, is like rule number one of the things I learned. You don't go to a club in Leicester Square. They're awful, awful places. They cost an absolute fortune. They tend to just be like, I remember going to one and just like leaving almost like immediately and just going, I'm getting a night bus home. Fuck this. And he does that, which for a 19-year-old bloke who doesn't get to go to clubs in the States, remember?
They make a big deal about that, don't they?
Yeah.
Christian does, yeah.
But was I the only one that was blown away by Dave Chappelle, like, being, like, on this? Like,
yeah.
I was aware of Dave Chappelle for about another 10 years in my head.
Yeah.
He got everyone, didn't he, though? Like, everyone's passed through this show. It's just, as JP, it's just so random, isn't it? Chaotic. It's just, you get anyone in. But the big stars.
It was so, like powerful and sort of, like, formative at the time. You think about this time period, like 1993, yeah, like...
Well, Gareth at the time
Sky's out there, but, like... everyone didn't have Sky at this point and stuff. There was still that reliance on, like, terrestrial TV, and here you had a show that was like late night on that's got all these bands passing through it. So it was like massively influential from a music point of view, like wide range of genres, loads of stuff there with like comedy and comedians. Like Vic and Bob were on this one. I felt like Vic and Bob were on it all the time to me, like using it as like a channel 4 showcase there. Just a little like weird sort of slice of life stuff from around the world and stuff. I felt like I learned about the world from the word, probably. And like just like this idea that there's people just doing this mental shit and you're like, what, people would do that kind of thing. It's just like, I feel like I grew up to the word, like, completely. It was just such a important show in the 90s for a teenager in the 90s. Like it covered everything, didn't it? Like I say there previously, all those different things that we've mentioned here across the pillars. Snoop's on it, Kurt Cobain, Nirvana's first international TV appearance was on the word. Like, like that is insane. Absolutely insane.
I mean, we get critical as we get older, but you look in hindsight, the like musical guests, the comedians, the word had at the time.
Oh yeah.
Whoever was booking them had their finger on the pulse,
right on it,
so well. You know what I mean?
The closest to this for a kind of mix and match of guests that you get today, and it's a shocking comparison, is Graham Norton. In the sense that you have a range of people across different genres kind of put together, but obviously it's a much more sanitized environment where they want the kind of little bit of chaos to kind of, it's crazy because we've got Doc Cotton chatting to Lady Gaga. But here, it was just like, well, what happened if you just put them there and go, right, we're not really going to give you any help here, because we're not going to give you Graham Norton to kind of feed you the nice lines that they're able to respond to and the easy gags.
When Norton was on Channel 4, mate, though, it was wild there, wasn't it? That was Wild West as well. That was anything goes, mate. It was fucking wild.
Yeah. Well, for this, I mean, the word is kind of like the Word had then been the precursor to kind of what TFI Friday then tried to do of making a kind of word for during the day. And then Sean Ryder said, right, I'll turn up on this and then I'll do my best to fucking ruin it.
But that's the one as well. Like you had Metallica, who like was on TFI. It was random. It was just so like they just turned all the bands again turned up on that. It was just, I love it though. The Word, as you say, it's just so random, but it's just proper out there, and I love it. And I can't wait to cover more episodes of it. Like for sure.
So
like, I remember stuff like John Wayne Bobbitt being on the Word. Cut off and stuff.
Before Raw, before he was on Raw, Gareth.
Just things like that. You were just like, what? Like it was mind blowing that was on your telly and getting that story like come out to you. But like you say, in one breath, dead serious and things. Then on the other, you've got fucking Rod Hull and Emu fucking around the neck of Snoop Dogg and things. Like it's just crazy, absolutely wild.
So are these three presenters that are on this, Mark Lamar, Terry Christian, Danny Bear, are these the three that we all remember? See, I always remember Katie Pucker.
Yeah, there was Amanda de Cadenet before Danny Bear, who you see in a clip earlier on in the show, don't you?
Amanda de Cadenet. I didn't know she existed, JP, until I was doing my weird watches in. But I'm glad that I found out she existed. Like, I'll be honest with you.
Photographer now, she's 50.
Because she was with Lado from Duran Duran, wasn't she?
John
Taylor.
She was 19 when she married him.
Fucking hell, 19.
How many wives did John Taylor have? Oh, I've looked at completely old John Taylor, who's a Mormon. So let's just assume a fuck ton, and we'll move away.
Well, Katie Pucker, was she like the reporter on it?
Yeah, she was the American. Something about her shaved eyebrow always did it for me. She always have a lot of line in the eyebrow. Now has her own YouTube channel.
I always preferred her to Bear and Academy. I was always more of a Pucker man.
Wild that Gareth.
And then she was on the Sunday thing it was on BBC Two that was actually quite good. I'm trying to think of the other comedian who was with her, but that's where I first saw Peter Kay in there. It's like it would be like there would be a Sunday show that Katie Puckrick did as well.
Oh, I know you mean Scottish comedian Donna McPhail.
That's it,
comedian.
Donna McPhail.
Yeah.
It was funny because I think these were like the big three presenters, because there was always the thing about Danny Bear, famous to being the curse of Danny Bear. She went out with Ryan Giggs, lost his form completely for Man U. They break up. He gets it back, as we saw in Premier League years, laying on that cracking pass for Cantona's second against City. But then she went out with Les Ferdinand, who was shit hot when he got back from Turkey, by the way. I can't overstate that enough. The QPR was a fucking goal machine. And I think I don't know if he went to Newcastle at this point in time, but she got together with Danny Bear, and that form completely dried up. And that was the thing being kind of spoken about there. Hufty, on the other hand, who's the other presenter,
was that a one-shot deal, or was that like a season-shot deal, or
what? I think they tried to bring her in for a few episodes, and it just didn't bloody work.
I think she was there for a while, like
really
a good season. I think pretty much. As soon as I saw her, I was just like, "Oh yeah, Hufty." Kind of forgot about her. But I mean, she wasn't good. I mean, don't get me
wrong. Do we all know what Danny Bear does now? Anybody?
No.
I reckon she's could be anything. I don't know. I'm going to say producer, Liam.
She's
a children's author.
Go on, Gareth.
Kept woman. She's got a famous husband, doesn't she?
Estate agent in LA.
Is she?
Wow. Hufty on the other hand, what's she up to these days? Not much. The last thing she did was Geordie finishing school for girls in 2011. But yeah, fuck all else since from there. Terry Christian's due a career revival in a big way, I think.
Wasn't he like he used to turn up on like Good Morning Britain, didn't he? I don't know what he was like so passionate about. I just
Manchester.
I was going to say.
And that was grating after a while, wasn't it? When talking about how fucking great Manchester was. He's like, piss off, fucking Man U there. But yeah. It's a very weird thing because they send out Danny Bear, obviously, to go out to the States, and she does that piece on gay rodeo, which just sort of dies a death doesn't it? Like, just doesn't go anywhere at all. It's one of the most pointless kind of bits of 4 minutes of TV. Going, how much did you pay to send her out there to cover this sort of stuff? Just pissing money away.
I'd love to be able to press like CFAX 888 or something like that and get the internal monologue of Dave Chappelle throughout this whole show. Like, it would have been incredible.
888.
I'd love to know what he thought of, like, you know, fucking Vic and Bob and stuff.
Just
like
him interacting with Vic and Eves. It's just a sight to see in itself, wasn't it?
Well, I'm looking forward to the next episode because it looks like Nick Berry's coming into the territory based on the hype.
Big,
the hype
yeah.
video.
Big star. No, it's in a heartbeat.
JP, proper heartthrob though, mate. I mean, he was a mum's favourite.
He was, wasn't he?
My mum, God rest her, used to love him in the Heartbeat.
Oh yeah, so's mine. To this day. Not proper Heartbeat if it wasn't him and that scruffy bastard, whatever his name was.
Greengrass.
Greengrass, that's it.
But boys, I've already decided on the next fucking, we're doing another one for sure. We're doing the Ollie Reed one, and that's from 92 apparently. So I don't know what month it's from, but we've got to do that episode of Ollie Reed. He fucking, honestly, I just go down a rabbit hole of Ollie Reed interviews on YouTube sometimes, you know, when I'm just chilling. It's just fucking unbelievable, isn't he?
A fucking proper wild man.
Mate, the original Mark Meadow.
Oh. Talking about like people turning up and they're a bit wacky on like TV and stuff. It was just like you couldn't legislate for what he was going to do because there was a fair chance he'd just pull out his dick. That wasn't beyond the realms of possibility. And go, yeah,
you just knew it with orange juice, JP, in it. Just a big jug of orange. It just definitely wasn't pure orange, was it?
I just remember him with the leather jacket and the moustache, no shirt on,
best
and then he starts singing Sex Pistols at the end. I think is.
Live the life in me.
Hell of a show, and I think it's one of the things that if you ever want to encapsulate a moment in time, like that being there as well, because I've been whittering on about it, but like as well for Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer, this is people look at Shooting Stars and go, oh, would they be a bit weird on that? For me, that was complete mainstream for Vic and Bob. If you watched Vic Reeves' Big Night Out, it was the idea that this would even get onto TV because it was so weird. If you've got like a bald man dressed up as a scientist in glasses stood there who's turning away from chives but like loving a spirit level, and you go, what's the reason? There isn't any. Plus, here's a song about the time my mate Terry took me away on holiday, which I can still remember. Don't really plants coke on it. Like this stuff, like Man with a Stick, it was mad, absolutely mad. And that song at the end that they sing, was it I Can Smell? Is that the title of it?
I love the smell.
I love the
smell of my, you know, and then they just make up some random line on the spot.
This man's wallet. It was just like really weird stuff. Just a glorious fucking mess of a show that is so sorely missed from a lot of kind of sanitized TV stuff that was going on, because there was a fair chance as well that guests would get pissed off during it.
Yeah,
as we saw with Emu and Snoop Dogg.
Well, Paul prepared on this. So, Matty, how old was Jarvis Cocker during this performance?
Well, you know what? You know what comes to mind, Liam, is because, you know, when you said about Soul Asylum before, Pulp come into my head, because didn't they hit the mainstream like years after they formed? Aren't they a 70s band? Is that right?
Yeah.
Is it like 79?
Like 79 or something.
Right, so I'm guessing then, right, he doesn't look that old. But now I've putting it together, I think he's got to be near, or I'm going to go big 40.
30.
30 fucking fucking hell. It just makes you want to pack in sometimes, doesn't it?
Fucking hell.
Oh, mate.
Oh, my God.
Boys, definitely doing more episodes of this for sure, for the word, of course. But JP, I'm setting you up here again here, mate. November the 18th, another show debuts. I know it's you want to wax lyrical about this, and it's Good Night, Sweetheart.
Well, I think one of the things you might like about Good Night, Sweetheart is the appearance of one of the cast members of Bread who appear in it. Can you...
Oh, what's his name? Oh, the Vic in it, the big guy. He's like, what's his name?
His name's Victor Maguire.
That's it, Victor Maguire. That's the
Yeah, he was in Lock, Stock as well, but he was also Jack Boswell in Bread.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember.
What's your problem with this show, JP?
Well, at its core, it's about a fucking arsehole, like fundamentally, who finds he does the thing of what would you do if you were 14 and you had the ability to try and time travel, or 15? You go, I'm just going to go and shag. And that's what he does as he turns up in 1943.
I can picture the board meeting.
And the first thing he's thinking is, quite fancy that barmaid. And it's very like, I mean, it doesn't get into the whole kind of like, it's not like some crazy conceptual piece with like, I mean, I'm sure if you remade Goodnight Sweetheart, like they would try and somehow skirt around the edges and give it a bit of a sci-fi sheen. But he's in an unhappy marriage. He's clearly looking to play away. And the first opportunity he has is like time travel. He's like, oh, brilliant. Yeah, going to get me end away here. Because it's like, there's a bit where he's claustrophobic, so he passes out when he goes into an underground, when he goes into the bunker as they're bombing, and he wakes up and he's going, oh, I thought I had a dream. I met this lovely bit of stuff who worked behind the bar there. I might have a chance. So I was like, if you're waking up in bed, you're waking up next to your wife, and this is what you're going to say? Like, I had a cracking dream about another woman, by the way, who I definitely would have slept with, given half the chance. He does, and he gets them both pregnant at the same time. And his solution is just to run between the two. And he starts nicking old money to pay for stuff, so he's wealthy. Nobody asks in World War II, like, why aren't you actually in the war? Because you are kind of young as well.
I can't remember what he says he is to avoid that, doesn't he? I can't remember now. But as a kid, JP, I just used to love the fact that he could just go back in time. I wasn't like fucking, But it's one of them, as you say, though. It's like, he must have built it up to the last episode where they meet each other, the two wives. Surely that happened. I mean, surely that.
I can't remember, unless it happened like Time Cop and they meet each other and it just kind of fucking explode or whatever, and that's the ending of Goodnight Sweetheart.
Let's have a look.
I mean, I'm just blown away here. Innocent 9-year-old me thought it was Rodney Trotter just goes back in time. JP's ruined this for me.
Oh, yeah. Rodney goes back in time just to get his fuck on. Apparently, that's it. That's his firm that he could like. I could stop the war. I could save millions of lives, or I could get me fucking end away.
JP, I'm going to read you the last episode. All right, you ready for this, boys? You ready?
Go on.
Goodnight Sweetheart eventually concludes in 1945 during VE Day. In 1999, Yvonne becomes suspicious of Gary's frequent absences and follows him to the shop where she witnesses
it's taken us 6 years to get to that point. He's been missing for a while. 6 years.
She witnesses him disappearing through the time portal. Gary later becomes trapped in the past when the portal closes after he saves Clement from an assassination attempt by poisoning. He later deduces that it was his destiny to travel back in time with this purpose of saving his life, and the portal closed because he's fulfilled the purpose. Gary's resigned to the fact that he's forced to stay with Phoebe and their son. Though he writes
so he's still slightly bitter that he can't have the double fuck on, isn't he? He's still like, oh well, I've got to accept my fate.
Right, but he's left it behind a stipple wallpaper in his Mayfair flat and note, knowing that Ron is redecorating it in 1999. Gary's writing appears before Ron and Yvonne in real time, advising him to tell Yvonne everything. He does so off camera, and Yvonne advises him that she no longer wishes to have any contact with him, which he accepts. The final episode of the series cuts to Yvonne standing at the gates of Blitz and Pieces. That's what it's called. Fucking hell. Blitz and Pieces, wondering whether or not they would meet again before being joined by Ron. It ends in 1945. Gary is standing in Duckett's Passage, wondering the same before being joined by Phoebe and Michael. So make what you want with that, JP. It's outrageous.
I mean, in fairness to his wife, I think she's completely spot on there for not wanting to see. It's an elaborate story. If he comes up and says this stuff and explains, oh yeah, he's off time traveling. Well, what's he doing? Is he saving the world? Something like that. He's sleeping with a barmaid from around the corner. Or ripping off songs from other people. There's a whole bit where he does like, using When I'm 64 by Paul McCartney.
Right, yeah.
We can't come off this without me mentioning this, but Goodnight Sweetheart had 59 episodes in total. Okay.
Yeah.
How many episodes did Only Fools and Horses have?
Oh, it's got to be less. Is this just the actual no specials, Liam? Or
No
just
specials episodes.
Oh, it's got to be less then. I'd say.
I'll say 45. No, I'll
8 times 6. What's that? 48. Is that
48? Yeah,
48? I'll go, Liam.
I'll say 50. For
What? So Goodnight Sweetheart had more episodes than Only Fools and Horses? Or the other way around?
I'd say
Oh.
Goodnight Sweetheart did the way you've presented it.
Okay. JP, what do you think had more episodes?
I want to say Goodnight Sweetheart. Only half an hour. There would have been long periods of time where it wasn't happening with Only Fools and Horses, where they wouldn't have been filming it and the rest. I'm gonna say 50.
Gareth?
Yeah, and I reckon this is one of those where there's not as many Only Fools and Horses episodes as folk think, so I'll go Goodnight Sweetheart, maybe double. I reckon maybe like 30 episodes of Only Fools and Horses or something.
Goodnight Sweetheart has 59 episodes over 6 seasons. Only Fools and Horses over 7 seasons has 64 episodes.
Oh, fucking hell.
It's
Which
actually is, it's quite a bit actually.
Well, I think I've seen 2 episodes of Goodnight Sweetheart my whole life, whereas I think I could never dodge Only Fools and Horses.
Nah.
Only Fools is the goat for me. I mean, it's fucking.
I hate it. Shit.
See, I knew, I was waiting for that. No, Gareth, seriously, I was waiting for it because it's proper. It's Marmite. Well, this generation, I don't know what it is. Like, me mate Crew, never seen an episode. As they say, have you never seen an episode of Only Fools and Horses? No. But it is.
It's about that London. No,
I love it. Gareth, I fucking love it, mate. It builds up. It's not this laugh a minute. It builds up proper like scenes and that. I fucking love it, mate.
Do you go in the Only Fools and Horses bar in town, Matty?
Gareth, I'll tell you the story about that, right? We actually did go, right? Seriously,
did you?
right? JP, no, right? We went in, right? JP, it's decked out. Del Boy's bed, the van, the fucking lot, right? JP, seriously, goes in at 1 a.m. in the morning. It's like a fucking trance club. I couldn't believe it. It's not like disrespect. People be taking pictures, old people taking pictures, man. It's full of kids dancing around, dancing on Del Boy's bed. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? I wanted to get in it and just pretend I was Del. There's kids. Fucking awful. Oh, it put me off. It put me off, JP. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Honestly, like kids like rocking the van, fucking all on. I was like, this is fucking awful. The bar's set up where you can do the Del falling through the bar, and that's just fucking full of vodka and Red Bulls. Oh, mate. Oh,
I need to go. I need to go to this bar.
We'll go in the daytime when it's more reserved. Honestly, fuck me. Oh,
I'm glad I asked you now.
Gareth, I'm telling you, man. Honest to God. Oh. Well, anyway, boys, right, we're moving on. We've got on the 26th to 27th, we've got BBC One airing a new 2-part Doctor Who special, Dimensions in Time, a crossover with EastEnders, apparently. The episode is part of the 1993 Children in Need appeal and is the first new Doctor Who episode since it ended in December 1989. Now, I'm going to start off here, and don't slap me. I've never seen an episode of Doctor Who, ever, and I've never been into it. So, is anyone a fan, or...?
Not me. It always just looked cheap to me.
I watched like a good bit of, I suppose, latter day Doctor Who. I have to say, is a lot more.
Yeah, well, that. Yeah.
I watched Sylvester McCoy. I remember the Sylvester McCoy stuff. I also remember Doctor Who not being popular and kind of getting cancelled because it felt that was the way of a lot of things towards like the kind of the end of the 80s before the inevitable reinvention. Is it just needed to go away for a bit. So I was quite surprised. I mean, I never got round to seeing it. I've got it here on the video chat on here in terms of the dimension and time. But Doctor Who wasn't cool, I don't think, at that stage in terms of like the mainstream, in terms of like popular culture. And then it's like,
now. It really is now. Isn't it?
It's a behemoth, and it sells all around the world. I mean, don't get me wrong, latter series have not been particularly good away from kind of some of the peaks of what it had with David Tennant and Matt Smith in particular.
Can I ask a naive question?
What's the script? How does the Doctor change?
What is this?
Oh, he just they have MacGuffins for everything. It's like the sonic screwdriver. It just solves all problems magically.
Oh, okay.
Basically, he'll point at something and he'll talk some bollocks and it'll get fixed. And before you know it, everyone's like kind of happy and alive. And then every once in a while, he'll just go, "Oh yes, the doctor has to regenerate. Why? Reasons." And they just regenerate. That kind of stuff. I don't know. Like it is what it is in order to just change the character. They've got a new series coming up as well. But I mean, I must confess to the show, I didn't watch this.
The guy off Sex Education.
Yes,
I like
that's the one.
Yeah.
Cardboard sits coming soon to
I
GRAPPL.
love this. Which, if you're looking at the screen right now as we're watching it, you think, yeah, that is. There's plenty of shitty scarves and fucking a terrible green screen effect is what's going on. It looks like he's in an Orb video. Really, isn't he, John Pertwee there?
No, I've never been a fan, Matty. I've seen about 2 episodes my whole life. And,
Wasn't one of the McGann brothers a Doctor Who at one point?
In the film, in like mid-90s, there's a film with Paul McGann.
You seem to be an expert here.
Well, my kids fucking loved Doctor Who. And watched all of them. Used to get them out from the library, so I ended up watching a lot of this. And it's like when Max was quite young, he would when he was like 5, he would watch like the really old black and white ones. He loved it. So it was like on all the time, and it was like bloody hell. It's like kind of
who's this bloke here?
I don't know, but he certainly should be in a new romantic band. Like he should be in a cover band as well. Looks vaguely like I thought he looked a bit like. Stuart Broad, but I've kind of got it wrong. He is someone. The other person is Stephanie Beecham.
No, that's Kate O'Mara, isn't it?
Oh, Kate O'Mara. What was she in? Dynasty or Dynasty? I want to say.
Gareth, you're not impressed with that state-of-the-art set, there, mate? No.
Jurassic Park was out the same year. Jurassic Park. And this is what we had on telly.
I'm sure there is a few Doctor Who fans who are probably listening and watching the to be sure, especially nowadays.
Oh no,
as we say, JP for sure, like definitely nowadays.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and there are bits of it I would say in the latter series. I mean, I'm not as mad on the Christopher Eccleston season because it's very clear he's doing it for one series and then he's fucking off. Whereas like David Tennant is around for the long haul, and then it starts to become sort of very sappy. I feel like it becomes like very overly sentimental.
This baby face on the screen there. There's a baby face you can get behind it. He's fucking
looks like Ken Dodd, doesn't he? It's Ken Dodd, isn't it? It looks like...
Here they are. They're in EastEnders in '93, so in theory, we should be seeing Doctor Who interacting here with possibly Sanjay, Geeta, Phil.
The Mitchells have got to be here, haven't they? Come on, let's have a look, boys.
Where's Big Ron?
There's Sanjay. There he is.
There he is.
There we go.
We'll come on to him in a bit when he's trying his double bluff. Turns out he's fucking her sister. Sorry, spoiler alert for stuff that happened nearly 30 years ago on telly.
Does he go through a time portal in the laundrette or something like
that? If Sanjay could have done, he would have done. And I'll tell you what, he would have, honestly, he wouldn't have stopped himself. He'd have been like just a time-travelling sex pest, frankly. Is that Bonnie Langford? It is, isn't it? Yeah. But there you go. Doctor Who, Dimensions in Time.
There we go. Pauline.
Oh my God! Is that Gillian Tailforth? It is.
Matty as well. Yeah, fuck me.
Looking old.
Steady, JP.
Seriously, real crushes.
JP.
She hasn't aged. Hasn't aged, that woman.
Mate,
right.
she's up to, JP, she's up to no good in footballers' wives here, mate.
Oh, I know. Exactly. I found that today as well.
No good in laybys as well, Gillian Tailforth, isn't she?
Well.
Yeah, I got it. There he is. Ric Flair. But anyway, boys, before we end on the soaps, we've got one more little tidbit. On the 28th of November, The Adventures of Pete and Pete debuted on Nickelodeon in the US. Now, Nickelodeon, boys, I mean, come on, this was one, you know, I knew you were teenagers, but you're still watching, weren't you, Gareth, JP? Was you still into Nickelodeon?
I've never heard of The Adventures of Pete and Pete in my life.
Wow.
Never heard of it? Wow, Gareth.
Wow. Do you remember it, Matty?
You know what, Liam, I remember it, but it wasn't one of my block of shows that I watched. I was more Keenan and Kel, Saved by the Bell, stuff like that. but and Clarissa and all that. But this was, I remember it being a big show, Liam. Of
Yeah,
course.
I was a massive fan of Pete and Pete. I kind of put it on the list just so I could speak about it. Full transparency.
Fair play.
It was ahead of its time. It was very surreal. It's kind of the best way to describe it. Do you remember Erie, Indiana?
Yeah.
On Channel 4? Very much like that, but kind of crossed with the Wonder Years. It was way ahead of its time. I mean, they had Adam West playing the principal in the school. The guidance counselor was played by Steve Buscemi.
Big name.
Iggy Pop was one of their friends' dads. There was like loads of stars in it. If you've never seen it, watch it. I've brought up a list here of people who made cameos in this. LL Cool J's in it, Drew Carey, Selma Blair, Debbie Harry, Juliana Hatfield, Kate Pearson from B-52s, Michael Stipe appears as an ice cream man, and one for you, Matty. Vern Schillinger's in it as well in one of his early roles.
Oh, yes. Has he got hair?
I think he does.
Is he playing?
I love it.
Far right wing fucking gardener or something.
But yeah, it's only 3 seasons. It was one of the first programs that Nickelodeon created. I think this and Clarissa were the same time they made both of these. But it's very much Wonder Years for that alternative generation, mid-90s grunge, going back to what we were saying about Nirvana and stuff. It's got a big cult following ever since. If you watch stuff like Malcolm in the Middle, Freaks and Geeks, it took a lot from this. But yeah, if you've never watched it, I think it was on Channel 4 at some point. I can't recommend it highly enough. I'm surprised that you've never seen this, Gareth. I thought
it's wild that I've never even heard of it. Like when you say
wild,
like Juliana, when you say like Juliana Hatfield's in it and stuff, like I've literally never even heard of it. Like I can't believe it.
Yeah, his mum's got a plate in the head as well. That's
what band is playing here?
That's a band called Polaris, and they're playing Hey Sandy, which is the theme music for the show. But yeah, if you've never seen this, if you like Wonder Years and that, but you want something a little bit surreal and a little bit off kilter, this is great. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's great.
Can you get them on physical, Liam, or are they all on
oh well, Matty, the first 2 seasons were released, but the third one never was. So that was like,
the completest of human there, like, aren't they? Fucking hell.
That was the big eBay buy. That was. I don't know if all 3 are out now, but you should be able to get them physical, I think.
Oh, okay. Good.
But yeah, can't recommend it highly enough. If you like them shows that I mentioned, you would like this, especially with some of the guest stars I've mentioned as well.
Yeah.
That's in it. I think Alicia Keys is in one of the episodes as like a kid and stuff like that. It's, you watch it now, it's like you think to yourself, how was this on Nickelodeon? Think like Rocco's Modern Life, or like a Ren and Stimpy, but a life form thing. Yeah.
Good stuff. And boys, now after that good stuff, we're going to end on the proper stuff, which is the soap. So we're going to break down the three big soaps that are listed here. We'll start off with EastEnders. I'll just give a little run through of. Did anyone watch these episodes, by the way? Before
I watched EastEnders and Brookside.
Right, so we'll start with EastEnders. Then just a quick synopsis. JP, we've got the first appearance of Carol, Alan, and Bianca Jackson. Big stars. Big Ron has a heart attack. Nadia returns to the square to find Phil. Mark, Michelle, Shelley Lewis, and Clem take a trip to Amsterdam. And Shelley discovers that Mark is HIV positive. So it's a big watershed moment, JP, in EastEnders history.
Well, the first thing you have to say with this is when they start fucking around with the theme music. This is not the theme music that you would be expecting to hear. I almost feel like I should be sharing this again, but with that theme music, because it is god awful. Like it really is. It's like they've tried to soup it up for the early 90s, and it dies a death. It's a wild time in this because you've got basically Phil with hair, so he's with Kathy, but he's got eyes on Sharon, and he's married to this Nadia woman, who I think was there to try and get like a passport at that point in time. So that's there. They find a load of weeds that Mark's brought back from Amsterdam, Shelley, and he's like, to say they're ignorant about HIV and AIDS, to which all I would say about this is Magic Johnson. Irvin Magic Johnson. They'd have been aware of that at that point in time. They go, look, fucking cool your jets here. This lad's still playing fucking basketball here. Like he's like seriously, like it was
There's
like
Nigel. There's Nigel.
There's Nigel. Yeah, they're with Kathy having a night out. Yeah. He's this one, and this one. Nigel is like they do they have a big karaoke night, and it's just the thing you're reminded by is how busy the fucking like pubs were busy. They were places where people went to. They were busy a lot of the time. These days, like you imagine pubs dying a death or having to do kind of novelty value stuff. But yeah, at this point in time in EastEnders, we've moved away from like a good bit of that older 80s cast. We've passed that we've passed the Den and Ange era. And I think this is very much, it's not quite new generation, if you want to say, where they're trying Phil isn't a headliner yet. I don't think we've got Grant in there at this point in time. They're trying to build, you're pushing an undercard of Sharon, Michelle, Mark, because they've been there from the beginning.
Yeah.
But like, you need some you're trying to mess around with a bit of putting other characters into there. I think Sanjay Gita never worked like as a tag team in EastEnders. There he is, Phil with hair. Michelle went on to do a lot of directing. That's not a real name. It's the name of the character. Susan Tully.
Sharon's still there, I think, isn't she?
Sharon's still there, yeah. God, yeah. I would point out to our friend Ian Andrew Dice Clay, who put up that famous thread about comparing
Kevin Nash, really?
No, it was Sharon to Chris Jericho.
Oh, was it?
And there's a point where he compares the Codebreaker to Phil basically pulling her over a table and shagging her.
Phil's big though, there, boys. It's fucking outrageous, isn't it?
I know.
I'm trying to see the prices there.
Yeah, £1. Yeah, go back and pause it, JP, if you can.
It is like I do want to say, like, how much is it? Like 125, something like that.
Outrageous.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
Shocking prices for this. I doubt they're paying more than fucking £2. Like you'll be paying £2 a pint then.
This is London as well, bear in mind, Gareth.
Singles, Campari there for 125.
Rum, £1.5 for rum, is that?
Yeah. Shite in East London.
That'll be Will Cooling doing his Goodnight Sweetheart. He'll just be coming back with the cheap rum.
Are they selling a commemorative glass for £1.20 at the bottom as well?
Oh yeah. No, I want to say that's possibly like, is that a glass of wine? Is that £1.20? No wonder they were turning up getting fucking hammered on a week. I bet this is like a Tuesday or something on here.
Lager £1.70.
Yeah,
£1.70 a pint.
Price it off at 93. Like
in Workington, how would £1.70 a pint have gone down there? Fucking lead balloon, isn't it? Fighting tour.
Your pub would have been shut tomorrow.
It would have
shut down for good.
Coming here from that London. But it's in terms of an episode, I don't know, did anyone else watch this episode at all?
I didn't see this, JP, nah.
Ah, okay. Like the big kind of stories really on it at this stage is Gita thinks Sanjay's having an affair. Spoiler alert, he is, with her sister. And then there's stuff about Frank, the cabbies have stopped working for Frank. Basically, a lot of gangsters are taking over the cabbies patch, not Cabbage Patch, which also feels like a thing from the sort of late 80s, early 90s as well. But so 3 men turn up telling Frank that he has to go. And he doesn't do his usual, oh, darling baby, please let me have the cab firm, and all this stuff that, Mike Reed used to do a hell of a lot.
Does he give him the runaround?
He does. Giving me the runarounds. Oh, it was a hell of a lot of fun.
That's how you just sound to me all the time, JP.
I know. You can imagine that. That's Nadia. I don't remember anything about her at all. She comes in. She feels not a clue. Not a clue. Other than I'll say as this day, Gillian Tailful, just how she has aged tremendously well.
Like a fine whiskey in CJP.
Oh yeah.
Moving on to the next show. Did anyone watch Coronation Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, watched it, Liam. Yeah, so I'll go through the synopsis and you can guide us through this episode. Andy MacDonald booked the registry office for his wedding to Amy Nelson, not intending to tell anyone in his family. Amy stays in Trinidad and doesn't return for the wedding, though. Percy Sugden, still going in 93.
And he's the boring one, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's the blonde lad.
He's no Steve. He's no Steve.
He's no fucking Jim, is what he is.
Well, Percy Sugden, still going up to JP, is shouting at the Platt children on Halloween. Sounds like Percy. In an attempt to apologise, he takes parking around on bonfire night, only to discover that they're burning an effigy of him on the bonfire.
What?
We've got to get that scene up, boys, haven't we?
Well, they're burning an effigy of him on there. How quickly does it come into this in this episode on here?
Towards the end, from memory.
I think Bray Wyatt was living in Manchester, wasn't he, back then?
Is this at the beginning of this episode? Is it? Oh no, is it this one?
No, because it's the whole. That's the whole run.
The whole run of it. Here is the Three Musketeers. The original NWO. Honestly, Jim as Hogan, Steve and Andy as Hall and Nash. And he never would give Andy a world title run, so he's very much Scott Hall there, isn't he?
Jim's the GOAT, isn't he, JP? He's definitely in the top 5 soap characters of all time. Like, he's fucking immense.
Hey, right. So he is. Great character. Tremendous. Jim McDonald.
That muzzy, though.
Don't you be fucking messing about with him either. Sorry. Look at him.
Oh, here she is. I told you.
Main event bet.
Who's this with her? Trying to give the rub to someone?
That's who Gareth brought up the other week. That's Eva. What's her name, isn't it?
Eva
Pope. Gareth. Yeah,
Eva Pope, yeah.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, Happy Valley, JP.
I know. There is to a certain, as GRAPPL Sarah once said when he tried putting on Happy Valley House. I'm saying it's like I was in the front room there with him. Went, that's Raquel off Corrie. No chance. Is that about right?
Oh, it is the big fella, Curly.
Full of main eventers. This is a stacked territory.
I remember her pissed up on Shooting Stars.
On the word.
I remember on the word. Yeah, I remember.
Everything comes back to the word.
Do you want to just watch this episode, boys, and just chill? What was it called? That supermarket, that Red Jad and Curly.
Better Boys.
Better Boys there. Yes.
Yeah.
Was Ivy Tilsley? She was on some program there, wasn't she? Where she did something really controversial, didn't she? Like
Big Brother or something?
Did she hold someone's cock or something? Or
I think that was the word.
Was that on the word?
I think it was. Yeah, from memory.
What did she do? Just trying to look it on Wikipedia where it says this happened on air.
I'm sure
it's something to do with her having her lips looking fuller, and she ends up being sacked as a result on it.
Do you reckon anyone went to barbers and asked for a curly there, boys? Fucking hell, how bad was that wig? Look at Bet's wig.
Oh my God. Incredible fucking hair, isn't it?
Passing of the torch in it though, JP. Bet's and Raquel. They tried it, didn't they?
She's got a head like a fucking xenomorph with that haircut on there. At this stage.
Boys, we need Percy's effigy there and try and find that here. Come on, let's get this image up.
Go on, JP, work for a 5-hour video. And,
that's it, yeah. I'm sure I can work through a 5-hour video.
Sorry, I didn't know. Sorry, boys. No, I didn't know it was 5 hours long. Apologies.
There's all sorts going on here, though, if you want an idea. Okay, here is, you want to see it, November 1993 in the space of 5 seconds. There you go. There's a lot happening there.
Sorry, I'm just reading Lynn Perry's Wikipedia, and it says here, Perry caused controversy, particularly when she appeared on the adult channel Television X on one of the shows. She was seen pulling down a young stripper's thong, proceeding to lick his revealed penis. Ivy Tilsley.
Wow.
Sorry.
Mavis legend, though.
You wouldn't see Mavis doing that, would you?
You wouldn't.
No chance for her appearing on Babe Station or something like that.
Decorum from Al Mavis.
Mother of Oliver Holt, isn't she? The journalist, the sports journalist.
I didn't know.
Really?
I didn't know that.
That's what he says. That's what she says. I don't really know. Sorry, there's the Les Dennis impression.
Sorry, no, it's not Mavis. It's
Rita.
No, it'll come to me.
What does she do in the show? What's
That's what Ivy Tilsley said.
Old woman lives 3 doors down. She used to babysit like Tracy Barlow quite a bit.
With the purple hair.
Phyllis.
Phyllis.
No, not Phyllis. Where's it? I'm gonna have to fucking. I'm going to have to Google this now.
Emily Bishop.
Emily Bishop. Emily Bishop. Yeah.
But Liam, was this a good episode, Liam, overall?
Yeah, it was all right. It kind of misses we're kind of missing the big headliner feud payoff with the bonfire.
Oh, we need to see it. I know it sounds like a cracking payoff. That
I'm going to see if I can find it in terms of Percy Sugden fire. Not something I expected to be. God, Percy, the fucking state of him. Honestly, I'm going to see if we can find effigy on here. Feels like I'm going to come up with a whole load of other things on.
I'm going to type in Percy Sugden
effigy. Imagine burning an effigy of him.
From what I can remember, it's a bit loose of a phrase to say it was an effigy. I mean, like it was like a bonfire, a Guy Fawkes that looked somewhat like him.
That's not coming up, JP.
It wasn't like it looked like the fucking end of the Wicker Man or something like that, where they did like a 30-foot Percy Sugden. Yeah, and then you really would do one later on in years with Reg Holdsworth as well, wouldn't you? To go on to that. No relation to Dean, as far as we're aware.
But before we end on the big soap, like, are we overall, boys? Were we EastEnders or Corrie? Overall, what do we? What's our preference?
EastEnders, but that's Corrie, obviously.
Yeah, Corrie. I would say Corrie as well.
Well, I know what I always used to say when I was banged into it. I always said that I preferred Corrie, but when the big episodes mattered, EastEnders would nail the big episode more than Corrie. Do you know what I mean? It was always gripping, but it was just too, it's the easy thing to say, it was just too miserable. EastEnders all year round, whereas Corrie had that great humour, didn't it? It was just, and they had good big episodes, but when EastEnders was on form for them big main event WrestleMania type, JP, he's
Christmas.
Not on the park, yeah, not on the park, right? Boss.
That sounds more like AEW, that the EastEnders is the AEW, Matty, and the Corrie
okay.
the WWE. But Corrie at times was the funniest show on TV, in certain spells with certain
Steve
writers
and
certain
genius.
Characters at times, like literally laughing your head off every night, like brilliant, glory days.
Steve and Lloyd, innit? Craig Charles and Steve, what a tag team they were! Absolute fucking dream team of a tag team, them like. But
Craig Charles went on Mighty Jannetty for a bit.
Yeah, he did.
And it became like a well-renowned DJ.
And JP, as it ended up, he ended up with Liz, didn't he? Of course, he ended up with Steve's mum, Craig Charles. He did. Lloyd ended up with Liz in the show.
But obviously, we did those top 4 TV characters the other day on Twitter, and I had like Blanche, like on
Gareth.
Like as good a TV character ever, funny every episode, just killer one-liners, cutting people down the side, just being horrible to people, like.
But even like
hilarious.
The hardest gangsters in it, Gareth. You wouldn't even say that back to them, yeah.
didn't matter who it was. She'd just give everyone shite and just bring them down the sides, like hilarious. Honestly, one of the greatest TV characters ever. It wasn't even tongue in cheek that I had her in there in the mix with like your top people from The Wire and Twin Peaks. Legendary character.
But right, we're going to end, boys, on one and only Brookside. Now, we've got the synopsis for this. It's Lynn and Frank Rogers' wedding. However, when leaving the wedding, Tony Dixon, who's Ron's son, crashes the car whilst driving, trying to swerve a drug-crazed, coked up out of his mind Jimmy Corkill. Tony is left in a coma and Frank is badly injured, but Frank dies in hospital from his injuries. And I think Tony dies, doesn't he, a couple of weeks later, is that right? Mm-hmm. And that kicks off the Ron and Jimmy feud that'll dominate for a few years as well. So
Ron and Jimmy.
It was never ending though, wasn't it? Fair play. But I mean, Brookie boys, I mean, we'll talk about the episode, but in general, I mean, it's apropos because it's just down. You can watch all the episodes, can't you? On STV, is it now? You can watch the first few seasons of it. So
4, I think it is. I think it's the first 4 seasons.
Yeah. So
was it appointment viewing in your house, Matty?
Oh, JP, I mean, it's the first soap I ever remember. Literally Jordash under the patio, Undertaker in it. Just
mate, you've seen it. You've seen those woods behind the houses. I've been to Brookside Close. You don't need to bury anyone on a fucking patio. There's a fucking forest behind them. And then I think it's Anfield, if I can remember the geography quite right. But
JP, it's like, this is like you know, mid-90s, Brookie, where I'm growing up on, I didn't get like the proper hard-hitting 80s, like swearing your head off, you know, Brookside, which I would like to go back and revisit. But even in the mid-90s, you know, it was Shock TV, wasn't it? Nat and George, yeah, fucking the patio and all that. So it was like
the incest thing, was it? Or was that the Nat and Georgia?
That's Nat and Georgia, yeah. That was one step too far, wasn't it? You had the cult.
TV's first lesbian
cult with Simon. That was
Simon,
good.
yeah, that was good stuff. It was groundbreaking telly, and you know, it really Barry Grant, Jimmy Corkle, just absolutely iconic characters. Like Jimmy Corkle with the double denim boys, I always say it's just fucking what a character he was. Gareth, he's up there for me as well. Just great stuff.
That's one of the most surreal moments of my life. I watched the second European Cup final against AC Milan upstairs in John Aldridge's bar, sat next to Jimmy Corkhill and Sue Johnson. That was a very odd experience.
Dean Sullivan, isn't it? What a name.
The last time I remember seeing it was when ICW were running obviously in one of their BBC documentaries, they're running in Liverpool. And they use Jimmy Corkhill to sell it. To which all I'm ever thinking is, if you're wanting to run Liverpool, why don't you just get him, like pay a glorified cameo fee to get Jimmy Corkhill hyping your wrestling show? That will do better than that. That will resonate with people in some way.
Tinhead, yeah. Philip Olivier. Get him in.
Are we pre Sinbad and Mick Johnson at this point?
I think they're both there, aren't they? Sinbad was more of an he was like a cameo for a bit. He was just being certain episodes. Then he got promoted to the main roster. He was on NXT for a bit, and then he got promoted to the main roster. He did, he purely did. He was just a window cleaner you'd see now and again, wasn't he? But Mick was. I was watching a few the other day, a couple of Saturdays back. I was in '96, I think it was, and Mick Johnson's getting stalked by this woman, and like she's telling everyone they're getting married. And everyone believes them, and Mick's never even like kissed her or nothing. And everyone thinks Mick's the nutter, where she's got full on Bray Wyatt shrine on the wall and everything. And it's like it's
Mick Johnson.
Mick Johnson,
real name, because I know that Liam saw him in the Full Monty.
What's his name? Lewis something.
Lewis Emmerich.
Yeah.
He was in Corrie for a bit. He turned up in Corrie as Liz's interest. How many fucking love interests has Liz McDonald had? Fucking hell.
Oh, more than I've had hot dinners. I tell you that.
But Brock,
I was thinking about the same thing about Phil, though. Wasn't he? He's like a dog with two dicks, that bloke. He really is. He's just never away from the women.
JP, sorry, before we end on Brookie, one of my worst ever, it etched in me brain, fucking horrible, vile moments in any soap is when Phil sleeps with, remember Melanie, Tamsin Outhwaite on Christmas Day when she's got the towel on? It's just horrible that. It's just me fucking, it's disgusting seeing him go at it with it. It's fucking awful.
You sound really appalled because also your audio just sort of went just ever so slightly. So you gave it like somehow sleeping with Tamsin Outhwaite is the straw that breaks the camel's back for Matty Edwards. This step too far. I really enjoyed it for it.
Yeah.
I thought it was
just groundbreaking.
It was a fun episode. Like there wasn't. They're doing. I mean, obviously they're doing hashish. You know, they've just been to Amsterdam and you know, and Michelle's going, "Oh, found drugs," whereas Jimmy's with a fair bit of coke. But I mean, is he supposed to? He's also supposed to have been arranging the caterer for the wedding for Frank and what's her name? Who's he married? Frank and Lynn in there. Well, I couldn't remember Frank. Like, I remember Frank vaguely, and then obviously having seen what's it's like, oh right, he dies not long after this. I kind of vaguely like remembered him, and also one of the guys who plays his son, who's an actor in loads of other stuff that I've seen, including Slow Horses on Apple TV. He was in the first series of that as well. So it was, I enjoyed this. The car crash stuff that they had where you don't actually see the car crash. They just sort of ploughed into a wall, a bit like Tony Adams did when he got caught drink driving and then sobered up and started writing poetry and going out with Caprice. But none of that happens to Frank Rogers because he dies. So.
Any thoughts, Liam? Any thoughts on Brookie as in general?
I was always more of a Brookside man. I know you probably think I grew up watching Crossroads, but I was I was more I was always more Brookside than any other soap. It just seemed the most real out of all of them.
Yeah,
it was the best of the soaps, and I don't know. I think I think soaps kind of died a little bit when Brookside finished up.
Yeah. Because it was the big Channel 4 one. You know, you had BBC had one, you know, ITV had one, and there were different cities as well. And then it was like, okay, well, Liverpool, having a soap set in Liverpool felt like the kind of next natural step. And then, you know, I wonder if El Dorado is what fucked it up ultimately.
But I was going to say, JP, you mentioned the channels. Did anyone ever watch Family Affairs on Channel 5? Because I didn't.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I remember when Channel 5 first started.
Was it good, Liam, that?
Idris Elba was in it. Because it was.
Was he? Yeah. Oh, fuck off.
Yeah, Idris Elba was in it.
I'll have to go back and watch this then. Did not know that. Fucking hell.
There was quite a few. There was quite a few big. That was NXT. That was proper NXT. There was a lot of. There was a lot of people who that were in that and then went over. Do you remember? Is it Nigel's wife from EastEnders? She owned a cafe in it. I forget
Debbie, was it? Was it Debbie? No?
Yeah, Debbie was in it.
Yeah.
She owned a cafe in it. Yeah, Gary Webster was in it. The guy who played, was he? You know, the guy who took over from Pete Waterman, Dennis. Waterman.
Dennis Waterman. Yeah,
is it his nephew or something? He was.
That's
in there
right.
as well. Big star in that as well. Idris Elba. Yeah, you missed the trick not watching Family Affairs.
Oh, that's to get on this now. I didn't know was Elba like a proper character in it for ages.
Yeah, he was in there for a couple of months. I mean, I will warn you, I don't think you can get on physical, Matty.
No, I'm not interested then now, Liam. Step too far.
Plat'll sort you out.
Yeah.
I'm just looking now. You know who else was in it? Gareth Hale from Hale and Pace fame.
Oh, he was.
I remember
that now, yeah. Was he like working in the hospital? No. Was that did he turn up in Casualty or was that his partner? I'm sure Pace O'Hale was in that Casualty as a porter. Oh, I can't remember now. Maybe it's just a big fucking dream I've had. I don't know.
He says he's trying to find the effigy of Percy Sugden.
We're not ending this until we find that, JP. We're just hitting the 3-hour mark, boys. You know, I don't want to apologise or worry, you know. But thank you for the time.
Oh, here we go. I think now I've managed to find it. Well, I don't think it'll be like a literal bang, he says. Can you see it? There he is.
It was worth it.
Absolutely fuming. Look at it.
He's disgusted.
It looks more like Frank Sidebottom.
He's hurt. He's fucking scarred by that, isn't he?
He should have told the kids to fuck off, should he? That's fucking brilliant. That. JP, I mean, you know, if you want to close this out, mate, it's been a fucking. I've absolutely been next killing. I've laughed so much. It. Honest to God, boys, thanks for giving the 3 hours of your time. All years, it's fucking been brilliant.
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, the thing I'll ask is any plugs from anyone. Go you first, Liam.
No plugs. Twitter, LF Doom, Instagram, LF Doom. Follow me on there. That's about it.
Not your eBay, Liam. You're not plugging that.
Click on the link in the bio on both of those pages.
Love it.
It will take you to an eBay store with all affordable goods.
Yeah,
love it. Yes,
good lad. Cash in hand as well. That's what we like to like. Non-declaration of earnings. To quote the Frank Skinner sitcom, Blue. What was it?
My Blue Heaven.
My Blue Heaven. Brilliant. Matty, any plugs from you?
Well, you're going to do the GRAPPL plugs, JP, obviously, but I'm going to have to plug a record with Andy Ogden on a new show, a new episode title, just entitled Shite. It's called Shite.
I creased while I was recording last night, and I saw that pop up, and it just said GCP presents shite.
It's literally just, you know, the top 10 or the worst 10 cage matches of all time we start off with. So hopefully everyone gives it a listen and enjoys it. It was just me and Andy having a good old laugh on that, like, so check that out if you can.
Brilliant. Gareth?
Download the GRAPPL app. You never know, I might put old episodes of The Word on there and things like that.
You
know.
Everything's over 4 stars. Always spectacular. Well, I mean, as people will know, we obviously had Spotlight last night as well. We're going to have Observe this coming up. We've got the weekend show on Friday. We've got Chris's King of the Mountain pick for the Ring of Honor shows in Liverpool in 2007 as well. So we've got loads of stuff on there. And I've got to do a daily update as well tomorrow. But I think. But
can I just ask JP just before we go? Are we all coming back for an episode number 2?
Oh yeah,
in a couple of months or whatever. We all in the group.
Oh yeah.
Love it. Thank you, boys. Yes, Liam. Thank you very much as well for organising the itinerary, Liam. The list was fucking brilliant, mate.
No problem. Really it was a collaborative effort, of course.
Oh, thank you, Liam. Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Brilliant. And all I've got to say is bye.
Ta-da.
Right.
So, why English?
Because it's not on Patreon. That's why.